Okay, I'm going to call to order the regularly scheduled city council meeting of the Cedar Park City Council. It is 7 o'clock. The meeting is open. A quorum is present. I do want to note that Councilmember Robinson has let me know that he's right before just a few minutes ago, his city computer started installing updates right before the meeting. So he said at the rate it's updating, it's going to be a little bit before he gets those done and gets to sign on. So he'll be joining us momentarily. For tonight's invocation, we have Councilmember Guevara.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to read something really quickly. It's out of Romans chapter 12 and starts with verse 17. Can you hear me?
I cannot hear you, actually.
Can anybody else hear me?
Hang on one second.
I can hear you fine, Mike.
Yeah, I can hear you too.
Okay, Mike, let's try that. Can you
see? I'm unmuted. Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. Very good. All right. I just wanted to read something quickly. It's out of Romans chapter 12. It says, "Do not repay anyone evil for evil, but be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. If it is possible, as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone." So I wanted to read that. We get to hear a lot of different wisdoms, and I think that the wisdom coming from the Bible is probably the greatest. And I have a friend of mine, Corey Tabor, who's going to do the invocation tonight. Is he on?
Mr. Yes. Tabor, are you on? Can you hear us?
I can hear you. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, good.
All right.
Yeah, before Corey gets started, I just wanted to, I've known him for a while. We actually went to UT together and reconnected relatively, well, been connected on Facebook and stuff, but really started talking earlier this year. And he gave me this great bio: speaker, author, nonprofit leader. He's been a college pastor, a church staff pastor, a program director for sexual risk avoidance education. He's a coach. He's the CEO and founder of History of Making Community Development Center, a nonprofit focused on education and economic and family development. He got his Bachelor's of Science in Communication Studies from the University of Texas and his Master's from the Administrative Leadership from Rockridge. He and his wife, April, live in Austin with their 2 children. But most important of all those things, he's a friend and somebody who I've called to seek advice from. So I wanted him to lead the invocation tonight.
All right. Let us pray. God, we are grateful for this day and the opportunity to be able to know you and be in a relationship with you. We're thankful for the opportunity to be in leadership, and we realize that to whom much is given, much is required. So we ask that in this season where our nation, our city, our state are so divided, God, would you bring unity? And would you allow us to be able to work together to accomplish what is best for our communities? God, we pray for wisdom that comes only from you. And we ask for insight that you can give us beyond what we've learned through simply getting education or through our experience, but that comes from you. We just pray for this council meeting tonight that you would be honored and that you would allow all that happens to honor you. In Jesus' name, amen.
I couldn't hear anything. Can anybody hear me?
I didn't hear any of the pledges or anything.
I can hear you, but no, there was no pledge.
Yeah, I didn't hear.
We'll do the pledges.
Still can't hear you, Corbin.
Okay, can y'all hear me? Can y'all hear me?
Now we can.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. We'll redo the pledges. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Can y'all still hear me? Awesome. Okay, A4, public communications. This is for items that are not listed on the agenda for up to 3 minutes each. No deliberations with the council. The council can respond with only factual statements, recitation of existing policy, and request for an item to be placed on a future agenda. And I want to read this preliminary statement. For those of you that just want to watch the meeting, you can watch this meeting the same way you usually do on CPTV 10, or you can stream it on the website. If you want to actually speak in the meeting, speak on an agenda item or during the public comment period, which we're in right now, just go to the website on the screen and join the meeting with the website on the screen. This is basically an online version of our comment card system that we use during in-person meetings. So we'll call on you and read your comments for the agenda item you've indicated. This technology allows us to have residents communicate with us by video from their computer or just using the audio on either their computer or their cell phone. Keep in mind, this is a recorded meeting. So if you sign up to speak and choose the video feature, we'll see inside your home or wherever it is your background of where you're speaking from. And finally, the audience will be muted unless you're called on to speak. The IT staff's doing this so that we reduce feedback and background noise. And please be patient with us as we may need a few seconds or so to load each speaker so that you can be shown on the screen. If you want to send us information or comments, but you don't want to participate in the comment sections of this meeting, you can always email any council member directly. Our emails are found on the city's website at www.cedarparktexas.gov. So we have 2 people signed up under public communications. Actually, we have 4 now. Dick Lewis wishes to speak and suggest systemic changes to the city charter. He is a Cedar Park resident. Dick, are you there? Can you hear us? Hello? Can you hear us, Dick? Hello?
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and members of the council. My name is Dick Lewis, and I'm a resident of Cedar Park. You may be familiar with an article which appeared in the July 24th edition of the Hill Country News regarding campaign finances for Cedar Park council races. It's always valuable public information to know the source and amount of political contributions of candidates for political office. Yet, this highlights a concern I have. I find it disparaging when individuals or groups from outside our city make large financial donations to political campaigns for our city council positions. Elected office under our governmental structure was never intended to be purchased in the marketplace. We must protect our city from outside influences with dubious agendas, which may not reflect our city's goals or standards. On another matter, I acknowledge partisan politics has become involved in our previously nonpartisan process of electing city council members. I'm disappointed to see our city losing an essential element in the governance of our community, where candidates are committed to represent and serve all of the people of our city instead of only their supporters. I, along with others, have witnessed what I believe is unacceptable behavior contrary to accepted standards of a majority of our community by a few members of our council. In reviewing our city charter for processes and sanctions for council members who disregard mandated moral behavior and ethics, I find the language deficient. I believe it's time to temper the campaign contributions to candidates for city council and provide a mechanism where inappropriate behavior by council members can bring a continuum of sanctions, which could result in forfeiture of their office. We need to make systemic changes to our governing documents. I urge the council
Mr.
to
Lewis,
convene.
sorry, but you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I urge the council to convene a city charter commission to research, discuss, and make recommended amendments to achieve the following: standardize campaign contributions for council positions from out-of-city sources, whether by individual or group, and place a threshold on the amount of donations one source can contribute during the campaign period to any one candidate. And also expand the definition of moral turpitude to include a pattern of unacceptable behavior or conduct by an elected official, staff, or appointed individual, and provide for a continuum of sanctions for violations, including removal from office. Thank you for your time and consideration of my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Katie Schaefer, Cedar Park, wishes to talk on the subject of Dorian and Tim, continuous antics endangering our police officers. Okay, we're being told that she is not, they can't get a hold of her or get her to unmute. So if you can hear my voice, just I would try to re-register in. Okay, next we have Melissa Kelly wishes to talk about Councilmember Duffy and slander.
Hello?
Hello? Hello?
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So thanks, Mayor and Council. This isn't the only issue I'm speaking on today. I do have something else that I'm registered to speak on, but I'll leave that for later because it is on the agenda. I would like to formally request 3 citizen comments, as I had through an email 2 weeks ago to the entire council, that Councilmember Ann Duffy formally retract and apologize for the slanderous comments she made at the July 20th council meeting, where she accused me of harassing her husband, knowing full well that such an accusation was false. In the email I sent to the council, I detailed all the elements of the crime of which I had been accused by her, and I wholly pointed out how not a single element had been met with my actions, and how Ann Duffy would have known this, and how she would have known this as her husband is a police officer, a comment she likes to make frequently. I requested a retraction and an apology from her and a complete denouncement of her actions from each sitting member on council, and I have yet to receive one email or phone call about this issue from anyone on the dais. I also have yet to receive any direction as to where I can file an official ethics complaint regarding her behavior. Lastly, I'm requesting that a sitting council member request the censure of Ann Duffy for her disgusting slander of a Cedar Park resident in her official capacity as a council member and on public record. And to Ann Duffy, I find your behavior and therefore character completely disgusting. You're a disgrace to this council and this city, and I hope that in the future you would use your position to advocate for facts and truth rather than using your position to spread lies and slander your constituents from the dais. It's seriously disgusting. I honestly don't know how you sleep at night. You're seriously gross. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Christine Atchison, Cedar Park, wishes to speak on Tim Kelly's behavior. Hello?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. I'm Christine Atchison, a citizen of Cedar Park for over 10 years. And I just want to remind the majority of the council and their support staff of my correspondence to you after the special meeting 2 weeks ago tonight. That correspondence documented some of the lies and defamatory statements Tim Kelly said during that meeting and provided direct evidence proving he knowingly made them. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I look forward to a response from the city attorney's office about what is going to be done to correct the record. And I hope the 5 of you will hold Tim Kelly responsible for his dishonest testimony. It's astounding that I called into detail the abuse I have suffered for over a year from Tim Kelly, only to be further abused by him in the process. Please find a way to stop this madness. My children and I deserve better than this. Thank you.
Thank you. We have Rob Merrick, who wishes to speak on core values. Mr. Merrick, are you there?
There we go. I'm here. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Beautiful. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me a chance to speak tonight. I just wanted to join and kind of say, this is my third meeting now I've joined in the last 3 weeks. And I've kind of started getting back involved in the city council and the city in general in these meetings because of actions by council members and realizing that the only way to help make change is to get involved. This actually started, I've been in Cedar Park for a number, I think going 7 years now. And it took almost 2 years before I got involved with the HOA because I wasn't getting action. And I got involved with the HOA and we made changes. And I got on the board with the HOA. And what I'm saying is those years being on the board with the HOA brought me more involved with the city. I've worked very closely with folks in the city already to get things changed at very small levels. But now I think it's time to get more involved. And so my voice is going to be heard a lot. And I can't wait until COVID passes through and we can finally meet in person because I'm going to be a regular face at meetings. And so with that, I'm going to speak again, I think, a little bit later, but I did want to go ahead and read off something here related to core values. The Cedar Park core values, community. We strive to improve, promote, and help the community where we work and live. We are bridge builders that encourage opportunities to connect our residents, businesses, and visitors. Service. Our commitment to excellent service is at the core of what we do. We exhibit pride, enthusiasm, and dedication in our work and strive to improve the community and better people's lives. Leadership. We provide positive influences for citizens. We overcome obstacles and
Mr. Merrick, I just want to give, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I want to give you a heads up. You have 1 minute left. Thank you.
I'll finish in 1 minute. Thank you. We move forward in a direction that follows our community vision, innovation. We have a healthy desire to improve Cedar Park and support the use of original and creative methods to better the city. We believe that discovering new ideas, embracing change provides opportunities for success. Professionalism. We are an efficient and responsive organization providing the highest level of knowledge and expertise. Through our work, we promote fairness, dignity, and respect for our customers and workforce. Integrity. We adhere to the highest ethical standards. We are honorable, fair, and sincere and strive to uphold our organizational values with our discussions and in our actions. We understand that trust is earned through good character and fiscal responsibility. As stewards of public resources, we aim to prudently utilize those resources while always operating with the goal of delivering value and sustaining long-term
Mr. Merrick, sorry to interrupt, but please wrap it up. Thank you.
And thank you for the time. I will talk to you again soon.
Thank you. Okay. We're now going to call the consent agenda.
All right, so just a comment on that last thing there, Mayor Corbin.
Okay, hang on. Let me withdraw the consent agenda.
Thank you. That is exactly, those core values are exactly what our city staff does. They do it to the highest possible standards that they can, and many times they exceed those standards. So thanks for that comment. I can assure you that is exactly what the city staff does.
Yes, including the city attorney. Okay, I'm going to now call the consent agenda. It's in front of us.
I'll move to approve items B, D, and B, and D as presented.
Second.
Motion by Kirkland, second by Duffy. Any questions or comments? Okay, Mr. Chavez.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkland.
Yes.
Mr. Guevara.
Yes.
Ms. Duffy.
Aye.
Mr. Kelly.
Aye.
And I'm an aye too. It passes 7-0. Item E1 is the first reading and public hearing of an ordinance to rezone approximately 5.22 acres from general business to mixed use conditional overlay located at 107 South Bill Boulevard. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted 6-1 to recommend mixed use conditional overlay as requested with the condition of limiting the building to no more than 6 stories.
Evening, Mayor and Council. Amy Link with Development Services. Let me pull up my presentation. Okay, can everybody see the presentation on the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. Tonight I'm here to present the first reading and public hearing for the zoning request for 107 South Bell Boulevard. Before we go into the specifics of this actual request, I did want to provide some context for this request in relation to the Bell Boulevard redevelopment master plan that was completed in 2015, as well as the recently adopted Bell Boulevard district that was adopted earlier this year in conjunction with the master development agreement. So the map on the left shows the overall boundary of the Bell Boulevard redevelopment study area that was conducted and completed in 2015. The tract that's highlighted in blue is the property in question for tonight's zoning case. As you can see, the property was located in the overall redevelopment master plan study area. And then the area highlighted in red shows the area that was created the Bell Boulevard district as part of that master development agreement. The Bell Boulevard district really focuses on predominantly the city-owned land, and that boundary was defined when the city solicited for the master developer back in 2018. And so that boundary is more specifically highlighted in the exhibit on the right. And as you can see, the proposed zoning case that's before you this evening, while included in the overall master redevelopment plan on the left, is not included in the Bell Boulevard district that was recently adopted earlier this year. So I just wanted to provide some context related to those two, the plan and the district. And now I'll get into the specifics of this request. The request before you this evening is to rezone approximately 5.22 acres from general business to a mixed-use zoning district with a conditional overlay. The current future land use designation on the property today, it is included in the Bell Boulevard planning area, and it is currently zoned, as I had stated, general business. As you can see, the property is located just to the southwest of the intersection of Bell Boulevard and Park Street. The property currently has access to Bell Boulevard through a narrow flagpole portion of their subdivision that is roughly about 25 feet. The property to the north is the existing Cedar Park Cemetery. Existing property to the west is zoned neighborhood business and is undeveloped. There are some single-family residential developments north of Park Street and commercial development along Bell Boulevard north of Park Street as well. And then to the south and east, you can see the planned development zoning district with a mixed-use base district, and that reflects the existing Bell Boulevard district that was created as part of the Bell Boulevard Master Development Agreement. So these exhibits show the existing zoning on the left of general business and the proposed zoning on the right, which is for mixed use with a conditional overlay. And because we have not had a straight mixed use zoning district request for quite some time, I did want to provide a brief summary of the base district standards that are located in our zoning code related to the mixed use district. As the nomenclature gives credit, it is a mixed use district which allows for a mix of uses, including things such as apartments, retail, restaurants, entertainment type uses, personal service, offices, etc. And those mixed uses can be either included in a vertical development or a horizontal mixed use development. For a vertical mixed use development, that is considered when you have a mix of uses in a single building, where the first floor of the building is typically for non-residential uses, and then residential uses can extend on the second and upper stories of that particular building. The allowance for residential component versus non-residential component in a vertical mixed-use building, we'll allow up to 85% of the building area to be a residential use, with 15% of the building area allotted for non-residential use. The minimum density that is required for a vertical mixed-use product is 40 units to the acre. For a horizontal mixed-use product, where you have several standalone buildings, where you have individual uses in each of those buildings, but the overall development itself, incorporating all of the buildings, would be considered a horizontal mixed-use development. That allows for a 60% residential and 40% non-residential split for the building area and requires a minimum of 60 units per acre. Some of the other base district standards within the mixed-use district include allowing a maximum height of 100 feet. There is a requirement for a minimum of 4 stories for any mixed-use building, as well as 2 stories for any mixed-use building that does not include residential. There are requirements for structured parking if a residential component is assumed for the development. There are also requirements related to the look of the building and placement of the building in relation to the street network. In addition, there is a requirement as part of the mixed-use district that 7% of the gross site area be dedicated for open space, and that could be either public or private open space. And then the district also requires a streetscape, specifically that looks at requiring wider sidewalks, street tree placement along those roadways, as well as it allows for sidewalk cafes. And there is an exhibit that is included as part of the mixed-use zoning district standards that you see here on the screen that gives you a visual depiction of what the streetscape should look like within a mixed-use district. So with those base standards in mind, I did want to go into the applicant's request for the conditional overlay associated with their mixed-use request. When this application was originally submitted, the applicant did request a straight mixed-use zoning district. That request went to Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration in May, and at that meeting, the Planning and Zoning Commission did raise quite a few concerns regarding a straight mixed-use district. Those were kind of specifically related to how this development would complement the recently created Bell Boulevard district that was zoned to the south and east. The concerns that were raised in May included the height of buildings within this proposed development, the allowance for apartments in this development, given the fact that there are already apartments allowed through the Bell Boulevard district. So if apartments are going to be provided, should there be a limitation, and should there could be consideration for the density of the apartments on this tract. There were also concerns with the building design, how this development would complement the buildings that are proposed within the Bell Boulevard district. The Planning and Zoning Commission did talk about the desire to have maybe a planned development district for this tract as opposed to a straight mixed-use district, because with a planned development, there could be elevations for the buildings included as part of the ordinance, as well as a concept plan showing kind of the general layout for the property. Finally, the Planning and Zoning Commission did also raise concerns regarding traffic and access. As I had pointed out, the current access for this property is that small sliver of land that extends to Bell Boulevard. So they did have concerns about how this property would be accessed, as well as what the traffic impacts related to this development would be on the surrounding roadway network, specifically Park Street. And there was discussion by the Planning Commission about the potential for requiring a traffic impact analysis now before the zoning request would go forward and be considered by council. Ultimately, so in May, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended postponement of the applicant's request to address those concerns. And in July of this year, the applicant brought forward a request to Planning and Zoning Commission that include the conditions that you see on the screen today. So those conditions include a limitation on the height to a maximum of 82 feet. It includes a limitation on the number of residential units to be capped at 370. The condition that if they are proposing apartments on this tract, that it would be encased within a vertical mixed-use development. And then they've also incorporated some of the building design standards from the Bell Boulevard design book that was adopted as part of the master development agreement to address some of the concerns with the building design and elevations. And just to get a little bit more visual context regarding access for this tract as well as building height, I did want to point out 2 exhibits from the existing Bell Boulevard design book and how they relate to this tract. The exhibit on the left shows the roadway network that is proposed within the Bell Boulevard district. You can see that there are roadways proposed on all 4 sides of this proposed this rezoning tract. And the roadway network that you see on the exhibit on the left has also been adopted as part of our roadway plan. So any development of this tract will require either right-of-way dedication and potential construction of roadways to accommodate the access and traffic associated with this development. The exhibit on the right shows the height limitations within the Bell Boulevard district, and this is from the Bell Boulevard design book. The height requirements are kind of stair-stepped, with the height or tallest buildings being allowed along the realignment of Bell Boulevard. So those are tracks 4, 8, and 10 that you see on the screen. Those are allowed to be 90 feet. The tracks in the kind of middle, 5, 7, and 9, are limited to 75 feet in height. And you will see that the proposed zoning case that's before you this evening is kind of in line with that 75-foot height that was established with the design book. And then the remaining parcels are limited to 50 feet in height. So when the mixed-use conditional overlay request was presented to Planning and Zoning Commission in July, staff recommended the applicant's request as proposed, with one exception, and that was to limit the height to 75 feet to be in line with the height limitation that was identified in the Bell Boulevard design book. However, ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the applicant's request for a mixed-use conditional overlay request as the applicant requested, so the conditions that you see here on the screen. However, that second bullet point was a recommendation added by the Planning and Zoning Commission to limit the number of stories for any development on this tract to be at a max of 6 stories. And with that, that concludes my presentation. I will note that at both the May meeting and the July meeting, we did not have any public comment, nor have we received any written public comment related to this zoning request. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well to provide a presentation.
Any questions of Amy?
Mayor, I have a question regarding that 25-foot driveway from the little flagpole part of that. I noticed that on one of the previous slides, that go back to the one that actually shows like the streets within the development.
Yes.
So there is a street that goes right up against it. How will that 25 feet? I mean, obviously we don't own it, but how will that look if you got a street right up against it? Is it going to be in part of the street? Could we work that out with them, or Is it going to be a little bit of green strip right next to the street? What is that going to be?
So I think the vision is for the street to basically incorporate the portion of that 25-foot land strip. So it would be part of the roadway that would extend. And that roadway would then extend all the way to the Park West roadway on the far western boundary of the track.
Okay. I mean, that makes sense to me. I just didn't know if we needed some type of agreement with them to do that, or because obviously it's not ours unless we do some kind of eminent domain or something like that.
So because these roadways are on the roadway plan itself, when this track comes in to develop, they'll have to address right-of-way dedication for the roadways that are identified as part of the transportation roadway plan.
Very good. Okay, that was my question. Thank you very much.
Okay, you bet.
Oh, Amy, my question is, how do you do a transportation or a transit study when the roadways that are around this project are going away and being replaced once Bell is moved?
So in reference to a traffic impact analysis?
Yes.
For this site. So depending on when they develop, the traffic impact analysis will have to assume kind of existing conditions and then build out conditions. So when the property develops, they will have to assume that these roadways essentially will be constructed or be required to be constructed with this development, or at least portions of them be developed. So they will look at existing conditions, and then they'll look at conditions when the property is proposed to be developed. And associated with the build out date, we'll look at when these roadways need to be constructed and how much of the roadways need to be constructed in order to accommodate the traffic generated by this development. Does that answer your question? I'm certainly not a traffic engineer expert. I'm sure Sam Roberts could probably speak greater to that, but I'm happy to try to answer any of the questions you have.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that, you know, what we see in the concept plan on the left in this proposal shows, you know, complete build out, you know, many years down the line. You know, this is Bell Boulevard project is a phased project. Majority of these roads won't be in place for several years.
Right, so there may need to be some interim roadway network or interim, you know, agreement or assumptions made in that traffic impact analysis to accommodate this development until the full build out of the Bell Boulevard redevelopment area is complete.
Other questions?
Yeah, I have a question. I don't know who that was, but I do have a question. So if I understand this correctly, correct me if I'm wrong, the initial request was for a max of 82 feet. The board requested it be 75 to match up with the buildings to the right there. But then it was approved back at the 82 feet. Is that correct?
So the original request that came in that was heard in May was actually had no height limitation. So it was assuming the max 100-foot allowance under the mixed use district. Mm-hmm. Planning and Zoning Commission had some concerns at that May meeting. And then when the applicant came back in July, their proposal included a limitation in the height to 82 feet. When staff reviewed those proposed conditions, we recommended as staff a 75-foot height limitation to be in line with the Bell Boulevard design book height limitations. However, ultimately, Planning and Zoning Commission recommended approval of the applicant's condition at 82 feet, but they added in the condition limiting the number of stories to 6 stories. So staff actually recommended the 75-foot height. Planning Commission recommended the 82 feet as proposed by the applicant.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't make sense. It just seems like as you get closer to the communities, and I know there's open land around there, it doesn't make sense to me to allow a higher building than but I guess we can discuss that later. I'll have to look into that some more. Thank you.
Mayor and Council, this is Sam Roberts, and I was wanting to circle back to a question by Council Member Mel, and about the TIA requirement. And I just wanted to clarify for Council that the ordinance allows the Council to require a TIA at any time in the process, whether it be at this zoning process or at the next step. Assuming that if the zoning gets approved, the next step would be the site development permit. And so it's really it's the council's discretion to do that. I will say that undoubtedly the TIA is going to show that they're going to need multiple roadways to serve that development. And like Amy pointed out, they have to dedicate the right of way no matter what, because the roadways are shown on the roadway plan. But they only have to build the roadways that are necessary to serve the traffic generated by the development. And that is the purpose of the TIA, is to find out what is necessary. And so it's really y'all's call at what point in the process you want to do it. I will say this one's a pretty unique situation because it is a flag lot and it has a very narrow strip out to Old Bell Boulevard, which that 25-foot easement's not wide enough to build a road to serve that development. There's no doubt about that. And so the TIA is going to it's going to be very important no matter when it's done.
Thank you, Sam. Other questions?
I have a question about the height. Staff recommended 75. P&Z agreed to 82 at the 6th floor cap. What is the applicant prepared if we were to grant the higher, the 82 versus what staff recommended, prepared for the cost for that go into the fire capability, extra fire lanes, the ladder truck requirements, things like that? That would be my question, because that's something to take into consideration.
Sure, I'll probably defer to the applicant on that for that response.
I'm sorry, what did you say, Amy?
I would defer to the applicant for that response. And I believe Jenny Brosh has joined as the representative for the applicant. And I believe she has a presentation as well.
Okay.
Do I need to run your presentation for you?
Yes, ma'am, you do.
Okay, 1 second, hold that up, please.
Thank you so much. That was pretty fast.
Okay, can everybody see that on the screen?
No. There's nothing on the screen. It was on the screen and went away. It was on the screen. Oh, thank you, Amy.
How about now?
Perfect. Mayor and Council, I'm Jenny Brosh. I'm representing the landowner. Thank you for giving me a chance to talk to you. The zoning case, thank you, Amy. That was a very clear explanation. I really appreciated the time you put into doing that. If you go to the next slide, please. So as Amy said, it's currently zone GB with the 100-foot height with multitude of uses that can go into general business. My landowner is proposing the vertical mixed use and is very excited about developing in Cedar Park. Vertical mixed use, as Amy said, does have the 100-foot height limit. Next slide. You saw this in Amy's presentation. It was originally part of the Bell Boulevard development, redevelopment area, and then it was taken out. Next slide. And here's the latest version of it, which obviously shows that it is at the northwest quadrant of the redeveloped area. Next slide, please. So we did get to meet with the neighbors in March before COVID occurred. And it was a small gathering. They were supposed to take it back, visit with the neighbors. We went over the exhibits of the area and specific details about the proposed zoning, including the 100-foot height. The neighbors had no objection to the proposed zoning change. The ones that we met with, they felt like proposed vertical mixed-use design was similar to what was going on with Bell Boulevard, and so they had no concerns about it. Their main concern was not about our project. Their main concern was about traffic caused by the redeveloped area itself. They were concerned that cars would be coming through the redeveloped area, which is, of course, the larger portion of the development, and then through our small piece, cross park, and then go through the neighborhood, and it was a concern of theirs. So I got back with staff, and they were very helpful at pointing out that the design of the Bell Boulevard Boulevard redeveloped area with on-street parking, et cetera, is going to promote a pedestrian feel, and it's not going to promote a feel of let's zip through this area to get through quickly if 183 is blocked up. I passed Amy's comments back to the neighbors so that they could see what staff had said about it, which I agreed with staff, and there weren't any other concerns at the meeting. Next slide, please, Amy. We wanted to give you some design ideas about what it could look like, because this landowner who wants to do the development is wanting to do something that's very fresh, a lot of articulation, something so that people would be excited about staying renting apartments that are expensive. These apartments, when you do a mixed use, vertically mixed use with a wrap product, the rents are higher, and you have to make it look like something that people are willing to pay more to live in, to have the retail office on the first floor, to have access to the park, to have access to everything that's going on in the redevelopment area. And so they're definitely doing a much more upscale product. Next slide. We have a couple of more ideas just to give you that their goal obviously is a lot of articulation and it being fresh and new looking. Next slide, please. This is the last slide showing some articulation, making it fun. Next slide, please, Amy. So, as Amy described very aptly, we went before planning and zoning twice, and the second time, what we agreed to is to take pages 28 through 33, which is the building design portion of the Bell Boulevard design book, and put that as a conditional overlay on this property, so that there would be confidence that the same standards that Bell Boulevard redevelopment area is going to build by, we are going to build by those same standards, which gives a confidence of the quality, et cetera. The next thing, it had concerned some people, the members on planning and zoning, they wanted identified as vertical mixed use rather than horizontal. So we're doing a conditional overlay that the site is limited to vertical mixed use instead of the horizontal to assuage that concern. Next slide, please. The building will have the density of 370 units, which is 71 units to the area, to the acre. That's obviously meeting the minimum requirement of 40 to the acre. Next slide, please, Amy. The height. Let's talk about the height. So the height, they can build in 75 feet exactly what they want to do. But the problem, the reason why, it's not a problem, the reason why they want to go to 82 feet is not to add an extra floor. It's to add another foot of building, another foot of height to the ceiling in the apartments, in the office retail, for a higher quality look, so that people who want to live here are having a better product. It's a more desirable, high quality product having that extra foot of building height. So they're not, so that's why when we explain that to P&Z, they said, well, so then will you keep it at the same number of floors? Can we put that in the condition? And we said, of course, put it in the condition. We're happy to limit the number of floors. We were only hoping to make a better quality product, having an extra foot of ceiling height. Next slide, please. So before I do the summary, I wanted to address some other things that were y'all's concerns that you brought up. The fire, if there's whatever we need to do to comply with fire, we'll comply with fire. So I appreciate that concern. It also helps that we're not actually adding another floor. What we're adding, so the top floor, the baseline of the top floor isn't as high as you would think because it has a higher ceiling. And so the fire, which is a great question, that will be addressed in whatever fire needs to have done, they'll do. Then concerning the TIA, we know a TIA needs to be done, and they're going to comply with whatever roads and upgrades and anything that comes out during site development about what they need to do at the time that they develop. They are more than willing to do whatever site development they're required and asked to do. The expense of doing a TIA for this area, identifying this as a vertically mixed use development, if we're not developing it that way, then the TIA doesn't do us a lot of good because we would be using the TIA based on this zoning. So after, if y'all approve the zoning, then after that, certainly the TIA needs to be done to work on the roads, et cetera, and have that all outlined correctly for the city to have a great product here. So I hope that answers y'all's questions. Yes, the TIA needs to be done. It needs to be done at site development permit because how do we do a TIA or a vertically mixed use development, and then that's not what we're doing. If it doesn't, we've got to support this zoning case. So again, the maximum building height not to exceed 82 feet. It doesn't say it on here, but the number of stories or the 6 stories. So that extra 7 feet of height from the 75 to the 82 is simply to give higher ceilings. That's why P&Z said, shoot, go ahead, do the 82 feet and limit the number of floors. It is a vertically integrated mixed use. They're going to comply with the Bell Boulevard design standards, which I think is great for them to be willing to do that step so that they're a good neighbor to the city with their redeveloped area that y'all are developing through Red Leaf. Next slide, please. Thank you for your time and consideration. I can answer questions. I have the owner of the property that can also answer questions if there's something that I can't answer for you. And thank you for your time and consideration.
Any questions of the applicant? We also have to do the public hearing too, as a reminder. Okay. I'm going to open the public hearing on item E1. We have one person signed up, and it is Rob Shands, the master developer with Red Leaf for the Bell project, and he would like to make a brief statement. Rob, are you there?
Good evening, Mayor and Council members. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
You're flying an airplane, by the way.
Sorry. I've got young kids.
Oh.
Thank you. Again, Rob Shands. I'm speaking tonight as a partner and representative of Red Leaf, the master developer of the Bell Boulevard Redevelopment District. As you all know, Red Leaf and the city worked very hard over many months to create a comprehensive set of design guidelines, which are encapsulated in the design book that governs the Bell District. Our goal in that was to establish a criteria that sets a higher bar than any other development in this area, Cedar Park. We understand that the city has a desire and may want to rezone property surrounding the district, which we think is great. but we believe that it's critically important to maintain high standards for buildings and streetscapes beyond just the Bell District to include this and surrounding properties. Doing so will promote a level of continuity and consistency to realize the city's vision of a walkable, mixed-use district of the highest quality in the heart of Cedar Park. We heard loud and clear from both this council as well as the community that there is a distinct vision for the area, and we believe that the design standards that we have adopted will protect that vision. So with that, we very much appreciate the applicant's willingness to adopt the building standards from our design book. The one area that we've had a little bit of concern and some discussion with the applicant is around the streetscape criteria, which we feel is very important to maintain a cohesive development. Again, we've shared these views with the streets regarding the streetscape with the applicant. I've actually learned a little bit tonight watching the staff presentation. So our recommendation as a master developer is that the streetscape standards should be reviewed and compared the design book to the mixed-use zoning and be applicable to this as well. And with that, I am available to answer any questions.
Rob, a question I had, I think you answered, was I kind of wanted to, because the Bell Boulevard redevelopment is our signature development. I mean, we spent a lot of time, a lot of money on this. And so whatever you guys are doing or expect is very important, given that we also have an agreement with you. So it sounds like the communication chain is a direct one between you and the applicant. You're not necessarily using like the staff. I mean, I'm sure you are talking to staff too, but you have a direct line of communication with the applicant.
We do. They have proactively reached out to us, and we've had a couple of conversations and we've reviewed the zoning request, and frankly, our concerns are more with the street network. A lot of the concerns that you guys brought up and questions that remain to be resolved, but we wanted to make sure that there is good continuity in the streetscape design, so that the pedestrian and vehicular experience is the same as you move through the district.
What, on the subject of the height issue, what are your thoughts on that?
We had some conversations with the applicant about that. I don't think I'm prepared to answer that question. I'm not as educated on the differences, the raising of the ceilings, and going to 82 or 83 feet versus 75. We have not had a chance to study that, so I would defer comment or defer to staff on that.
Okay. Yeah, because we're not voting on it tonight, but I did kind of wonder, because looking at that map where you had different parts of the development of Bell with different heights, it would be weird, it seems like, to have sort of this like anomaly height. It's different than all of the others, but at the same time, I'm assuming that at some level, the addition, I think the average citizen probably just thinks they want it to kind of look the same. When it comes to, you guys or them penciling out, they're looking probably at floors or what kind of price point or you can get or they can get for what you're building. And I didn't know, how that would shake out in terms of them lowering theirs or y'all raising yours. And that also includes your construction costs. So, and that, I know that's too much to talk about, to sort of get our hands around today, but the fact that we would have this weird height, I did kind of wonder, what y'all thought about that. But anybody have any other questions for Rob?
Yeah, I have one question. As part of the Bell project, Red Leaf is designing and building all the roads, correct?
That's correct. Within the Bell district, yes.
Within the district, yes. Okay. So I would assume that whatever product that they would put in place would have to go through you to make sure that it meets with all of the right-of-ways required by y'all?
You know, I would defer to staff on that because this property does, and it's confusing because we have the Bell Boulevard redevelopment district, which we also refer to sometimes as the catalyst area, which was defined in the red line in Amy's presentation, and then we have the more broader Bell corridor planning area. So it's sometimes I get a little mixed up with the vernacular on specifically what we're talking about. But as it relates to, my understanding is that properties outside of the Bell Boulevard redevelopment district would be subject to city staff review, but would not come to, that Red Leaf would not be a party to that. Now, I'll defer to Amy to correct me if I'm wrong.
Sure. So the roadways that are within that Bell Boulevard district, that was the red outline. And let me share my screen here again. So can everybody see the screen again with the two maps on it? So the roadway network extends outside of the Bell Boulevard district that was created as part of the master development agreement. However, those roadways are designated on our roadway plan. So the roadways within the Bell Boulevard district would be the responsibility of the master developer. And then any roadways outside of the district are still on our transportation roadway plan, our master plan. And so any person who develops where their development is adjacent to or included in an area where a roadway needs to be extended, they have to dedicate the right of way for those roadways and then construct the roadways needed for their development.
So basically everything that's not hashed is stuff that would be built by the city as part of the roadway system, and everything that's just straight block would be part of the Bell Boulevard district. Is that what you're saying?
No. Amy, can you clarify that? The city is not responsible for building those roads. Amy, will you clarify?
The roadways that you see in dashed lines that are located
Yes,
kind of
that's the
within
word.
the boundary of the zoning case before you would be required to be, the right of way would be required to be dedicated by the developer of this tract. So if the applicant before you tonight is the actual developer, they would be required to dedicate the right of way and construct the portions of the roadways that are needed to accommodate their traffic. So the city would not build the portions of the roadways that are not included in the Bell Boulevard district.
Okay, so the dashed portions, I guess the one we're talking about is the one on the upper right corner of the project, because I believe the one on the west side of the property is on somebody else's land, correct?
So the extension of Park West Drive, this blue roadway, that is, a little bit of it abuts the property, and then a portion of it does not. So yes, there would be a requirement for, let's say if the property to the west of that roadway came in, they would have a responsibility to construct the extension of Park West Drive to the north.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Just have one last height question on the Bell Boulevard side on the 75-foot building restriction. Is that getting them 6 floors on those buildings, the 75 feet?
You could definitely get 6 floors in 75 feet, yes.
Okay. That's all.
Yeah, piggybacking on Dorian's question, is the 75 feet height, is that something we wrote into a zoning that we passed, or is that in a contract, or where is that? Where is that standard or that regulation?
The 75-foot height requirement is included in the Bell Boulevard design book, which was adopted as part of the master development agreement for the Bell Boulevard district.
Okay, so is that the only place it's in, is in the design book?
Correct. The height limitation in mixed use, the like base zoning of mixed use is 100 feet.
Okay, so in the applicant's presentation, when they said that they adopted the design book, but they referenced specific page numbers, by implication, I'm assuming they're not adopting the height page number.
That is correct. So they basically adopted the kind of building design standards, kind of the look of the building, placement of the building, facade treatments, etc., but not the height.
So for the 75 feet buildings in Bell, when you answer Dorian's question about the 6 stories, does it actually specify 6 stories, or does it have a range, or what does it say?
I do not believe it specifies a number of stories. It just specifies 75-foot max.
So we might end up in the same situation, even if the applicant builds a 75-foot building, if our Bell buildings are shorter.
Amy, can I jump in on this? Sorry, I know I just magically appeared on this WebEx. On the building height topic, many of the community conversations we've had as it relates to this district and our conversations with Red Leaf, the imagery Amy has on the screen on the right side is a good descriptor in the sense that there is a deep desire from the community for this project to be town scale, meaning the blocks that were closest to residential areas of which this property, which is before you tonight, but again, outside of the official Bell District, is closer to residential property. There was definitely a desire for it to be more along the line of 4 or 5 stories so that it is more compatible with residential. Again, this property is outside of the project area, but you can see that stair stepping that was done as part of the Bell District. And that was done because there was a lot of concern from single-family neighborhoods about things looking out of place.
Thanks, Catherine, for those comments, because that was my concern. I thought that's what the citizens had voiced, so I'm glad you chimed in. Thank you.
Yeah, and I get that, but if the goal here is to have it all look the same, I'm just a little bit, even if we go with 75 feet for the applicant, if we come back and don't build, or is that committing us to 75 feet on 9, 7, and 5 if we want them to all look the same?
So blocks 9, 7, and 5 are committed to 75 feet. Not
okay. I didn't understand that. I thought that y'all just said it was a maximum.
No. I guess they can go lower, but really they will be designed to be very close to that. The Master Development Agreement, which is really the governing document, has adopted the design guidelines. So really it falls within the larger MDA.
Okay. Other questions?
Rob, when you talked about the streetscape standards, and that's actually glad you brought that up, because that was a concern I had more of, because I realized the building's probably going to look different, but continuity of driving around through there, just thinking of other mixed use developments that I've been to throughout the state. I don't know if you can see the map that's in front of us, or if Amy, if you can jump in. When we talk about the streetscape standards, would that be even those blue dotted lines or the blue dashed lines as well? Would they have to adhere to that, or is that just within the interior of the project?
Well, so I'll speak to the interior of the project and then let Amy talk about the city's broader roadway plan. So within the interior of the project, the design book has a chapter, I believe it's chapter 4, on streetscape standards that is pretty prescriptive on what the vision is and how this is going to feel, and creating the right space for sidewalks and pavers at certain intersections, allowing for some cafes and those sorts of things. And so that is part of the design guidelines, just like that Red Leaf will adhere to, just like the height limitations that are stair step that are also encapsulated in that design book. And so when I made my comments about continuity of streetscape standards as we look at rezoning, or as the city looks at rezoning surround this and other properties in the broader area. We just want to make sure that the city's roadway plan or the site development permit process or the conditional overlay that that a applicant would be bringing forward protects the continuity of those streetscapes. So I don't know the exact answer, the legal mechanism where that is captured. That's just something that, in addition to the building design standards, which again, we appreciate the applicant adopting that section of the design book. We do believe it's important that we maintain continuity with all of these streets.
Okay, and I wasn't necessarily asking about the legal mechanism of it. What I was trying to figure out is what streets, when we talk about streets that wouldn't necessarily be, and I'm trying to figure out under the control of the city, which if any are we actually talking about? So that's what I said, Amy, I didn't know.
Sure. So in my presentation earlier, I had shown the kind of basic exhibit about the streetscapes that are included in our base mixed use district standards. So that's kind of our base code. However, the transportation plan that's been adopted has adopted the streetscapes that are identified in the Bell Boulevard design book. So the transportation plan that includes these roadways includes those cross sections. Okay. So I think that the roadway plan addresses the concern related to the streetscape because those exact cross sections from the Bell Boulevard design book have been adopted in the transportation plan.
Thank you very much.
Which it applies to any road in this area, whether you're in the district or not.
Thank you.
Hey, Amy, can I ask a question real quick? Because about the streetscapes. The city's roadway plan does address the physical cross-section of the roadway, and we would ensure that it is designed to meet that. But when Rob talks about the streetscape, I think you're talking about lighting standards, landscaping standards, streetscape. And as long as that's covered in the design book, and they're bound to that, then that would also be protected or insured.
That's exactly right, Sam.
For Sam, this applicant has only adopted. Oh, Sam, you got to. Word feedback. The applicant has only adopted certain parts of the design book, not all of it. So the streetscape section was not adopted.
If we were to approve this, we could add that. Basically, of the design book, chapters 2, 3, and the first part of chapter 4 through page 33, which includes all the streetscapes.
You could include a conditional overlay that includes additional standards that were included in the Bell Boulevard design book. I believe the streetscape standards are included in chapter 5. So that could certainly be similar to the conditional overlay that includes the design standards from the Bell Boulevard design book. You could incorporate the streetscape standards from the Bell Boulevard design book.
Yeah, because that would run all the way to page 36 and 37. So you're correct.
The other questions here?
Is the applicant, is it okay for me to speak again? Is it okay for the applicant to speak?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
if you're not speaking, though, please mute your line.
Right, I had muted it before, but it's okay.
I don't mean if you're speaking. I mean if you're not speaking. Anyone that's not speaking, speak to them.
Correct, but is it okay for me to speak now, Mayor?
Yes.
Thank you. A couple of things. So, if the streetscape is important to you, then the applicant will include the streetscape. The applicant that he wants to build a beautiful project here and everybody be happy with it, and he is willing to add the streetscape. You know, the mixed use already has wider sidewalks and trees and a lot of things already in it, but he is willing to add those additional items that are that are from the Bell Boulevard. I wanted to address the height one more time on this. The 75 feet, and the reason why the P&Z members said it's already at 75 feet next door. The difference in 75 and 82 is only 7 feet. They indicated after they discussed it that little difference is not going to make that much difference in looking at the buildings. The aesthetics of it, to have a little bit of difference on the height, I see it as a thing of beauty rather than a negative thing. You've got 90 feet that you can go up to on 4, 8, and 10, 75, 9, 7, and 5. And if this is just 7 feet above that, I think it's going to be attractive to have a little bit of different things going on. And we did meet with the neighbors directly across Park Street, and we told them we were asking for 100 feet, and they didn't have a problem with it. So the nearest neighbors were not having a problem. I was not at all of the meetings that y'all held with all of the neighbors about the redevelopment area, so I don't know specifically who had problems with it and who didn't. But I think we would go with the 75 feet, but it really, to have the extra foot ceiling height and the beauty of having the top quality apartments that you could possibly have, I think is a real plus. And thank you for letting me speak. And if there's any other questions, I and the landowner are both available. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions of Jenny?
I was just going to add a comment that, Jenny, I think that it's a beautiful building. It definitely complements all the surrounding buildings. I like what you guys did with it, design. I mean, it looks very inviting. It just looks very nice. And so very impressed with the overall design. And just want to say thank you guys for taking the time to consult with the neighbors that live in that area. And from my standpoint, I really don't see a huge concern for 7 feet. Again, the only issue that I would have would be the road piece. As long as you guys are willing to take care of that, if that is an issue, I have no issues with it at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comments, questions? I'll close the public hearing on item E1. And any comments or questions? We will see that again at the next council meeting. Okay, item F1. Consideration of recommendation from the Parks, Arts, and Community Enrichment PACE Advisory Board for the Cedar Park Community Sculpture Garden, the 2020-2021 display year.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and members of Council. Jackson Brockway, Assistant to the City Manager. Can you all see my presentation okay? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm getting a nod, so I'll hop into it. So tonight I'm here before you with a recommendation from the Parks, Arts, and Cultural Enrichment Board for sculptures to be included in the Cedar Park Community Sculpture Garden. So before I get into the recommendations themselves, I just wanted to give a quick background on the sculpture garden itself. The Cedar Park Community Sculpture Garden is located immediately adjacent to the Cedar Park Rec Center. And since it's been open in 2013, it's really been a great community resource for us and really a premier opportunity to highlight art in our community. So these pieces, we have 12 sculpture pads that are available for display. Sculptures are loaned to the city for a 1-year display period, and we'll rotate them out, like I said, once a year, generally coinciding with the fiscal year. Selected artists do receive a $400 stipend for the cost of transportation and installation of the pieces. So this year we have 9 pads that are available for selection. The reason we have 9 is because 2 of the available pads are part of the permanent collection from the city of Cedar Park. The city has purchased 2 statues in the past. In addition, the PACE board has recommended an additional purchase of a statue from a piece that's on display this year. So you will see that at an upcoming city council item, that recommendation. So when we look into the art selection process that really helped the board put together this recommendation, it begins with a call for art projects that's issued in May. And during that time, staff will go ahead and we'll do outreach and we'll put the call for art out and we'll get that out to a variety of artists, art schools, art societies, including the Texas Sculptors Society. And we also post the call for art on a variety of websites that host specific calls for art projects. So once the submissions were received, the PACE board this year went through an evaluative process that included using a weighted scoring matrix. A blank copy of this scoring matrix is available in your packet if you do want to review. And once each board member scored each piece, the scores were then compiled together and then aggregated into a final ranking. In terms of what was reviewed as a part of this evaluative criteria, the scoring matrix took a look at first aesthetics, so looking at its aesthetic properties, really its quality of design and creativity. Next looked at variety, so looking at the different styles that are on display and looking at the sculpture garden as a whole exhibit, having some variety in between the pieces. Next, they looked at the suitability for outdoor display. We want pieces that are going to be durable and can survive through the elements, whether it's wind, rain, or the intense heat here in the summer as we're experiencing today. Next, we do look at sales price. As I mentioned earlier, the city has in the past purchased pieces, and we do want to have pieces that are affordable in those instances. Lastly, we also look at local artists. We give a preference for local artists, and if they are from the city of Cedar Park specifically, they'll get an extra score there. And one thing I will mention about the local artist preference is that 4 of our 9 pieces for recommendation were pieces that were submitted by local Cedar Park artists. So we're excited to have 4 of our 9 be from local artists. Then at that point, we're at the stage we are now, where recommendations are reviewed by the city council. If the council concurs with the recommendations, the council will then approve the selections. So with that, I'll give you a quick summary of the 9 pieces that the board has recommended for display. A full copy of these are also available in the packet. I'm happy to skip back to any pieces if you want to see them again. I will also add that the board did recommend 2 additional pieces that could serve as alternates in the event that one of the recommended pieces is not available, or maybe it's been sold by the time we get into our installation period. So I'll dig into the actual submission or the actual recommendations here. The first one is from Kirk Sees, titled Pluma Sculptura. The second piece here this is one of our local artists. This was submitted by Terry Garrity on behalf of her son, Daniel Garrity, titled Dystopia. Next piece is from Anthony St. James, titled Freshwater Cowgirl. Anthony St. James is one of the artists we've had featured in the Sculpture Garden before, and so we were excited to see some more recommendations from him. Next piece here is from Angel Alcala, titled A Place for Our Thoughts. Next piece here is from Randy Halstead. He's another artist from Cedar Park. The PACE board really took a liking to his 3 submissions and recommended that all 3 be included for display. So I'll go through his 3 submissions now. They all have kind of a similar theme to them. So the first piece is titled Twistin', as you see here. Second piece here titled Wingin'. And his third piece titled Dancin'. This piece is more of an interactive element. So those hearts on display will kind of move and react with the wind. So it's an interesting kind of interactive display there. Next, we have a piece from John Luke, who's also been featured in the Sculpture Garden in the past. This piece is titled Cosmic Pie. And then our last selection is another piece from Anthony St. James titled Remember When. So those are the 9 that have been recommended for display. I'll get into the 2 alternates as well. Our first alternate selection is from Dave Spear, titled It Will Be Okay. And last, we have a piece from Reynaldo Alanes titled Madre. So with that, that's our recommendations, or I should say those are the PACE Board's recommendations. So in terms of next steps, if approved by the City Council, artists will be notified of the selection. And then at that point, staff will coordinate with the artist to both remove the pieces that are currently installed at the Sculpture Garden, and will then also look to set up new pieces for the 2020-2021 display year. The installation period for that generally occurs between October 3rd and October 10th, just to give us enough time to coordinate with all these artists to get the old pieces moved out, and then obviously make sure the new pieces are installed. So at this point, the action before City Council tonight is really to accept or adjust the final recommendations for the sculptures for the 2021 or 2020 through 2021 display period for the Cedar Park Community Sculpture Garden. So with that, I'll open it up for discussion. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Jackson? Okay. So the motion you're needing, or the action you're needing, is to accept the recommendations of the PACE Board?
That is correct.
So I'll make a motion that we accept the recommendations for the PACE Board as presented tonight. And thank you very much, and tell the PACE Board thank you very much for all the work they've done.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion by Kirkland, second by Robinson. Is that right? Any discussion? Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Aye.
Mr. Guevara?
Yes.
Mr. Kirkland?
Yes.
Mr. Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
I'm a yes, so that passes 7-0. Item F2, consideration of a resolution authorizing agreements with Aetna for self-funded medical services, third-party administrative services, stop-loss coverage, and pharmacy benefit manager services, Blue Cross Blue Shield for group dental insurance, Alliance Work Partners for Employee Assistance Program, Madison National for long-term disability, and Minnesota Life for basic term life and accidental death and dismemberment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Christina Cummings, Human Resources Director. Are you able to see my screen? Okay.
Yes.
Tonight, I am presenting a resolution to authorize the city manager to sign contracts with Aetna for third-party administrative services, stop-loss coverage, and pharmacy benefit management, Blue Cross Blue Shield for dental insurance, Alliance Work Partners for the Employee Assistance Program, and Ox Inc. for life and long-term disability coverage. The city has approximately 475 full-time employees and 7 retirees who are eligible to and participate in the city's benefit plan. The city has core benefits consisting of medical, dental, life, accidental death and dismemberment, long-term disability coverage, and an employee assistance program. These are funded in part by the city. Employees are allowed to purchase benefits for their dependents, as well as they may purchase enhanced plans by paying additional costs. The city's benefit year runs from November 1st to October 31st. Each year, current vendors who are not on a rate lock submit renewal rates, kicking off the evaluation of benefits for the upcoming benefit year. Staff, with the assistance of the Hayes Companies, which is the city's benefit consultant, evaluates the current vendors' benefit renewal rates and RFP submittals as needed. In FY20, the city moved from a fully insured to a self-funded program. As a reminder, there are multiple components of self-funding. These include contracting with a third-party administrator and purchasing stop-loss insurance, including individual and aggregate. The third-party administrator handles the day-to-day functions, including claims management and adjudication, network access, medical management, utilization review, and customer service. Stop-loss insurance is purchased to limit the loss exposure for the city on an individual and an aggregate basis. The renewal rates for dental, life insurance, long-term disability, and the employee assistance program came in flat. Blue Cross Blue Shield's renewal for third-party administrative services came in at 29.7% increase and a 38.1% increase for their stop-loss coverage. Therefore, the city went out to bid for TPA services, stop-loss, and the pharmacy benefit management. The city received 3 proposals for third-party administrative services and for stop-loss coverage. In addition, we received 4 proposals for a pharmacy benefit manager. After grading in accordance with the evaluation criteria stated in the RFP, Aetna was determined to provide the best value for all 3 services. Aetna provided minimal plan design changes and included a multi-year guarantee capping increases at no more than 5% per year, allowing for cost predictability. As I mentioned, Aetna did have some plan design changes. These were limited to the high deductible health plan. The family deductible is being raised to $5,600, and the individual deductible is being raised to $2,800. And that's so it can still be embedded within the family deductible. In addition, they did raise the telehealth rate on the high deductible health plan from $40 to $45 for that plan. As you can see from this slide, the premiums for medical are not changing, not for the employee nor the employer. And with a flat renewal, dental premiums will remain unchanged as well. So staff is recommending entering into contracts with Aetna for third-party administrator services, stop-loss and pharmacy benefit management, Blue Cross Blue Shield for dental, AUX for life and long-term disability, and Alliance Work Partners for the employee assistance program. Funding for the benefits has been included in the FY21 proposed budget, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions? Okay.
Mayor, I make a motion that we adopt the resolution to authorize agreements for the providers as set forth in the resolution provided to council.
1 second.
We have a motion by Guevara, second by Chavez. Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Kirkland.
Yes.
Mr. Robinson.
Yes.
Mr. Chavez.
Yes.
Mr. Guevara.
Yes.
Ms. Duffy.
Yes.
Mr. Kelly.
Yes.
And I'm a yes. The resolution's adopted 7-0. Item F3, discussion of proposed fiscal year 2021 budget and consideration of setting a maximum tax rate for tax year 2020 and fiscal year 2021 and scheduling 2 public hearings.
Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm Kent Meredith, the Finance Director. And can y'all hear me okay? See me okay? See the chart okay?
Yes.
All right. Well, last week at our budget workshop, you got your very first glimpse of the FY21 budget. This evening, we'll take another step closer to getting to the end and actually adopting the FY21 budget. But as far as a big part of the budget process and state law requires that the City Council take action on 2 items this evening. First, we need to set a maximum tax rate. And second, we need to set our public hearing dates. This agenda item will cover both of those requirements. This is where we are in the planning calendar. We're at our second step. Once we finish up tonight, then we'll have 2 more meetings that we need to have, and then we'll pass and adopt the budget. So this evening, we'll break down the tax rate into 2 different components. And we're going to discuss what each of those components do and what the revenue from each of those components is used for. Then we'll talk about the overall rate. and the effective rate, and we'll have a discussion on what the overall rate, what the impact of the overall rate is on the average homeowner in Cedar Park. And finally, we'll ask you to vote on the maximum tax rate and set the public hearing dates. The rate that you approve tonight can be considered the maximum tax rate. That means it can be lowered during the process, but you won't be able to increase it once you adopt it tonight. So looking at one of the biggest components of the tax rate is the maintenance and operations, or the M&O component. The working budget includes a rate of 0.446977, which is applied to every $100 of a home's value. That rate is divided into two components. The M&O component is used for the day-to-day operations of the city, and the INS rate, which is used to make payments on our debt service. During this section of the presentation, we're going to focus on the M&O piece, which is the lighter green color on the left side of this pie chart. The proposed FY 2021 budget is structurally balanced, meaning that our revenues, our recurring revenues, represented by the gray outside ring on this chart, cover the recurring expenses represented by the pie chart in the middle. Property taxes make up 43% of the budgeted revenues. This is the same chart, but the inside pie chart is broken down by department instead of function. This chart shows a history of our revenue collections from the M&O side of the tax rate. The proposed budgeted revenues of $25 million includes $498,000, which is set aside in the Economic Development Department for existing economic development agreements. We have those agreements with the Park, 1890 Ranch, Costco Town Center, and James Avery. Okay, this is a detailed list of all the revenues in the FY 2021 general fund budget. On the chart, you can see reductions in budgeted revenues in most of the revenue accounts. Most of the reductions in sales tax collections, development-related fees, and fines and forfeitures are related to our COVID modeling. Franchise fees are not decreasing. These revenues are tied directly to contract terms with each of the utility companies operating in the city's right-of-way. The administrative and contract services line is going down. The bulk of these revenues come from the utility fund and the Type A and Type B corporations. The transfers into the general fund is tied to departmental budgets. As those budgets change, so do the transfer amounts. Finally, the other income line contains interest revenue, quarry royalties, and other miscellaneous revenues. The decrease is caused by lower projections in interest revenues. Now we'll take a look at the expenses in the FY 2021 general fund budget. Overall, the general fund budget increases by a total of $1.4 million compared to the FY 2020 budget. However, there are only two lines in the budget with increases. Salaries and benefits are increasing by $1.7 million, and the transfer line at the bottom is increasing by $889,000. Looking at the $1.7 million increase in the salaries line, we're not adding any FTEs to the budget. We're budgeting $785,000 for the police and fire contracted pay plans and step increases. We're budgeting $34,000 for police overtime, $273,000 for fire overtime, and $227,000 for a modified civilian performance pay adjustment. And the transfers line at the bottom, that line is increasing by $889,000. $45,000 of that is for AC units at the police department. $250,000 is for security and safety improvements in city buildings. And $601,000 of that are for drainage projects.
Kent, before you move on, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. I want to mention two things. One, you mentioned the term FTE. And just to clarify, an FTE is a full-time equivalent. It's otherwise known as a position, as in a staff position. And so what Kent was clarifying is that in the FY21 working budget, we have not added any additional positions into the organization this FY21. Additionally, as he talked about the transfers as it related to the $45,000 for an air conditioning unit, that's a project, and it's actually a project that we're primarily funding from our bond accounts, and we had a little delta that we needed to be able to fill so that we can go ahead and make replacement of 2 of the air conditioning units at our old police department. It's a project that we've put off for a couple of years. And so as we've been looking at timing and priorities, this is FY21 is the year in which we believe that we need to go ahead and make that repair and replacement. It's out of warranty, and we are in a place where that needs to go ahead and be replaced coming into this fiscal year. Go ahead, Kent. Sorry.
All right.
Kent, can I ask a quick question before you go?
Sure.
Brenda, what's the average number of new employees on any given year since we're growing?
Golly, I'm sorry, I don't have the average number over the last several years. I can tell you it's been anywhere. Last year was probably the lowest number that we had in several years. And I don't want to misstate. It's been anywhere from 5 to 18, 19 over each year based on growth and what those needs were in terms of additional services or services that we were having to take over, such as signals is a great example. You added a drainage program, which you didn't previously have. And so we spent a few years staffing that up. You opened Fire Station 5, which required us to hire 15 new firefighters, which we spaced out. So I don't know that average, but I will definitely provide you that information prior to your first public hearing, just so you can get an idea of what that's looked like.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, we'll go ahead and move on. All those other numbers that are highlighted by that bracket, all the rest of the line items in the budget are going down. So the total of everything that's in that bracket is a reduction of $1.2 million, or about 6.4% of the general fund budget. The material and supplies and repairs and maintenance lines on this chart combined dropped by 14%. The reductions in these areas are a result of the departments making adjustments to their budgets to offset the COVID impact on revenues and the removal of one-time expenses. A $15,000 adjustment that you see the base in the repairs and maintenance is for a traffic signal expansion maintenance. The contractual services line drops by 4%, but includes increases for public safety data storage, public works network redesign, drone sense software for emergency management, an ADA transition plan update, along with numerous information services contracts for Smart Mobile, device data retention, and other managed security contracts and licenses. The other charges line included in the budget include training and travel, banking fees, postage, printing and publishing, economic development agreement payments, and other smaller miscellaneous fees. That line doesn't change very much from the 2020 budget, but it does include a $75,000 adjustment to base for election expenses. Okay, as we just discussed, the budget includes the police and fire contracted pay plan adjustments, which includes automatic anniversary step increases. Of the $1.1 million in this adjustment, $784,000 is related to those contracted pay plans. Remaining $308,000 provides additional funding for police and fire overtime. The budget also includes providing funding for a modified pay performance increase for the civilian workforce, and it includes a reclassification effort in public works. Okay, other than those workforce changes that we just talked about, this chart summarizes all the other additions to the general fund budget. Since the last time you saw this chart, we made a change. We added a $13,000 enhancement for HR. It's for our human capital management system installation and for training. Now, we went through all these the last time that we talked about these. I went through all of them and told you what they were for. We'll do that again at our next meeting and the following meeting. Are there is there anything on this chart that jumps out that you want some further details on? I can provide that for you. Otherwise, we can go ahead and move on. Okay, the city contracts with organizations to provide specialized services for our residents. Funding for contracts in this area is provided from the general fund. The proposed budget provides for the same $81,500 as we have in the FY 2020 budget. We're going to be seeking guidance from council at our upcoming meetings on this program. We've sent you some details and a packet that includes what each of these organizations do for the city. And we also had a couple of options that you can consider, or there's endless options that y'all can consider. But we talked about maybe tying this directly to the population in the city of Cedar Park. So we could increase this if you wanted to 83,900, which is our estimated population for next year. Or we can do make other changes as you see fit. We can spread these amounts differently between the organizations. But I wanted to show this chart to you because we wanted you to start thinking about this. So, at our next meeting, if you have questions or you want to give us some guidance, you can do that. But that's going to be totally up to council. Okay, in summary, the proposed budget is structurally balanced, which means that our recurring revenue is covering all of our recurring expenses. We're projecting to collect $506,000 less in revenue than expenses. However, when you adjust the budget to remove the one-time revenue and the one-time expenses from the equation, we actually end up with a structurally balanced budget with $80,000 remaining. Our ending balance is projected to be $22.8 million, which at 38% falls within our healthy reserve policy. Okay, now we move on to the second part of our rate, which is the INS, the interest and sinking rate. We saw this chart a few minutes ago. This is the INS piece of this is on the right-hand side, which is used to service the city's debt. This chart shows the relationship between those INS revenues coming in and the scheduled annual debt service payments going out for large capital projects such as the 2015 voter-approved bond program projects. This chart compares the debt service payments, which is represented by the bars, against the projected revenue, which is represented by the black line across the top. And we look at those differences between the bars in that line. The dark blue color at the top of the 2021 bar represents the additional revenue provided by the proposed tax rate to pay down debt. At the current tax rate recommendation, we have a little more than $1 million in the FY 2021 budget that we can use for that purpose. As you know, we are currently in the process of selling bonds and issuing certificates of deposit or certificates of obligation. All those issuances are included in this model. If council chooses to adopt the rate that we're recommending tonight, that will allow us to buy down additional debt. We will come back later on in September. If you choose to go this way, we'll come back later on in December with a plan to defease debt and a resolution to do that. So what is the advantage of defeasing debt? Well, it saves the city substantially large amounts of money. What a defeasance is, it's retiring of existing debt. It saves the city on interest payments, and it provides additional flexibility, going forward into the future on future bond programs and issuances. Looking at the last 4 years, we've defeased or we've retired $9.6 million in debt, which has saved the city $3.6 million in interest. Looking at the FY 2021 budget, if we choose a tax rate that we're recommending tonight, we'll have about $1 million that we can use for a future or defeasance next year. That would save us $360,000. Now we'll combine the two rates into an overall rate and talk through that a little bit. We currently have a structurally balanced budget with an overall rate of 0.446977 for $100 evaluation. On the slide, you can see that we're slightly below the FY 2020 rate of 0.447. At our workshop last week, we covered some of the new SB2 terminology, and we'll go through some of that right now. The no new revenue rate is the rate that compares the values of the properties on our tax roll last year to the same properties on our tax roll this year. The no new revenue rate is the tax rate on those same properties that would raise the same amount of revenue. Our total proposed rate is lower than the no new revenue rate of 0.448864. The voter approved rate is the maximum rate allowed by law without any additional voter approval. That's computed by adding 3.5% to the no new revenue M&O rate and then adding the INS rate. Prior to SB2, this was called the rollback rate and was limited at 8%. The proposed rate is also lower than the voter approved rate. Here's a look at the property tax rate in the city of Cedar Park over the last 9 years. During our rapid growth period, council was able to decrease the tax rate as values increased and new properties were added to the tax rolls. As that growth period slows and stabilizes, the tax rate is expected to do the same. We're starting to see the natural flattening of the tax rate curve. There are two major variables that determine the property tax revenue: property values and the tax rate. Looking at property values, we see 4.9% growth in our total base, in our total taxable value. Our base values grew by 2.5%, and new growth accounted for 2.4% of that. The city offers a number of local exemptions. The over 65 exemption is $30,000. The disabled persons exemption is $20,000. The city also offers a freeze for residents over the age of 65. Once a homeowner reaches the age of 65, the taxes they pay on their home will not increase, regardless of increases on the value of the property. The homestead exemption is 1% of the value of the property with a $5,000 minimum. Again, all these are local exemptions, which means they are not required that the city has opted to provide the tax relief. We estimate that the city forgoes about $1.4 million each year in local optional exemptions. Now we're going to walk through.
I'm sorry, can we go back to that slide real quick?
Yes.
We talked about this at the budget workshop, but Travis County sort of threw a curveball at folks this year. And I wanted to not make sure we did not mention the fact that they did not appraise residential property this year, or they did not reappraise. And can you talk about that?
Yes, Mayor, we'll talk about that. I have a slide on that.
Oh, perfect. Never mind. Thank you.
Okay. Right. Let's talk about how we get to the rate that we have now in our budget. First, our current rate is 0.447 per $100 valuation. The rate is made up of the maintenance and operations and the interest and sinking components. As part of the truth in taxation calculation requirements and working very closely with the tax assessor's office, we calculated a no new revenue rate of 0.240558. Okay, the voter approved rate is also calculated as part of truth in taxation. The voter approved rate cannot exceed 3.5% of that no new revenue rate that I just told you about. The proposed M&O rate included in our budget, in our working budget that we're proposing to you, is the same rate as the voter approved rate. And then we add the INS rate, which is we're actually lowering this year compared to last year. Brings us up to the rate that we currently have in the proposed budget, which is 0.446977, which is a slight drop from what we currently have in the FY 2020 budget. Okay, Mayor, this will take us to where I think let me see if I can move something here. Hang on. I couldn't see on my chart. Okay, looking at both the Williamson County and Travis County average values, you can see that Williamson County, if you look at under the Williamson County column, those values went up 2.53% because they did do an appraisal and they actually certified their rolls before the due date of July 25th. So they got their rolls out certified to us. And you're absolutely right. Travis County did not provide us a certified roll. They provided us a certified estimate with very, very few appraisals or reappraisals of homes. So we're only seeing a 0.1% increase in values on Travis County homes. So when you combine the two, Williamson County and Travis County, to get an average value in Cedar Park, our combined average is $340,361. Now hang on just a second, let me get my numbers here. The combined value of $340,361. This is an increase of 2.25% over last year, and that includes Travis County not doing the appraisals. So applying the new average value to a rate of 0.446977, the average monthly levy would increase by 2.25% or $2.65 per month. Uh-oh. Can you guys still hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yep.
Hang on for a second. Looks like my screen is frozen. Oh, here we go. Okay, let's kind of break that down on how that actually affects a homeowner in Cedar Park. Looking at that same average value of about $340,000, we would, if this homeowner had a homestead exemption, because it's $340,000, a 1% exemption would be less than $5,000. So they get the minimum exemption of $5,000 in this case. That would take their taxable value down to $335,000. You divide that value by 100, and then you take the result of that and multiply it by the tax rate. In our case, it's 0.44697. That would give you the levy or the taxes that the city would have, that the city's component of their tax bill would be. In this case, it would be $1,497 for the year. And then that $1,497 would get split between the two components of the tax rate. Part of it would go into the general fund and part of it would go into the debt service fund. So the amount that would go into the debt service fund would be 44% of that bill, of that $1,497. And the other amount, the 56, the bulk of that would go into the general fund to fund the day-to-day operations of the city. So that's how we would apply that overall tax rate. So what we're going to need from you all tonight is a motion and a vote on the proposed maximum tax rate. So this is, like I said before, this is the highest level that you can go. And so we're looking for a motion from council and a vote on the tax rate, and we also need to set the two public hearings. When you make the motion, it's very important that we split the motion into the two components. So we need to say the M&O rate, the INS rate, and the overall rate in the motion itself.
I actually have a question. Can I go back and ask something?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so in regards to the FTE positions, did we deny or just kind of push off any FTE positions for any of our emergency services or fire or police departments?
I'll let Kent, I'll respond to that. We actually had requests in several of our departments for additional positions or FTEs, as you'll hear us talk about. As it relates specifically to public safety, we have looked at, there were requests related to additional FTEs in police and then some reclassifications in the fire department. And as it relates to police, there were requests for, I believe, 2 patrol officers. So it comes in as a police officer. And then a crime scene evidence technician. And then in speaking with Chief Harmon, we go through a prioritization of all of it. So if the question is, why aren't they in the budget? They're primarily not in the budget. You don't see any FTEs in the budget primarily because of revenue. And so when we looked at all the requests that came in, we go through a prioritization process of the things that are adjustments to base plus the things that are enhancements. You will always see additional positions considered as an enhancement in the budgeting process, so that we're able to talk about those with the city council if we're recommending funding on those. So you don't see, you didn't see any of them included in the budget this year, primarily due to the projected revenues versus the projected expenditures.
Okay, I think my
very long answer to your question. Yes, there were, and yes, we looked at revenues and expenditures.
Okay, so my only concern is just I just want to make sure we're not compromising either safety or maybe some ongoing programs to improve anything within the police department or fire department because of this. I know the future is kind of unforeseen. We don't know what kind of impact we're going to have on revenue with COVID, but with the nature and the way things are going right now, just down south in Austin, we have a lot of violence going on with radical groups, and all that stuff could bleed over very easily. I just don't want to be in a position where we're compromising any safety. And if we're not, and we think we're fine and we can move forward, I'm fine with that. But if we're hindering or slowing down some type of improvement to an investigative group or anything like that, or the police, and with fire department too, I just want to make sure we reconsider doing what we got to get them funded, to hire more FTEs if they need to. I'm not saying let's just do it. I just want to make sure we're looking at all the all the safety behind it, and not compromising it.
Sure. And so I'll make a couple of quick comments, and then if there's additional information that y'all want to see back before we go into our first public hearings, we'll be glad to provide that. The officers that are requested in this year's budget are actually, they are not related to criminal investigations specifically. They're actually officer positions that would be placed on patrol. And so what we look at in terms of staffing levels, we do consider call volume. So we did a study, I believe our most recent study is I think it was finished in 2018, 2019. And again, we look at call volume and time spent on call. So it's basically like how many officers do you have versus what your request for service looks like. And so there was a multi-year plan that looked at that data during that time and basically takes that data and sort of expands it over a multi-year period through a forecasting process. So that's why you have two positions that were requested in this year's budget, is sort of based on this data that's been forecasted into this fiscal year. Again, they're not specifically related to CID. They would be positions that are considered for patrol.
Right. And I think my next question to add to that would be, because I know we've been, flexing and moving people around in the departments. I want to make sure maybe we don't need these two officers because we're trying to, promote somebody somewhere else or move them into an investigative role or some other department that requires that position. So if those two police officers by some chance are going to be supporting a move like that, I think that's important to know as well.
And that's a great question. They are actually positions that would be, I believe the intent is related to what they call a swing shift. So if you'll recall, we used to have 4 platoons, and we had 2 daytime platoons. We have 2 evening platoons over our 7-day period. And so over the last few years, maybe 3, and I'd have to look at when we started this implementation. We started what's called a swing shift. And the reason that we did that is that we really tried to focus our resources on the times that we had heavier call volume. And so what you're trying to do is most effectively utilize your resources. So we actually have a swing shift that happens between the day and the night shift where we had heavier call volume. So we've placed more resources there. So we've actually created 6 platoons, and the purpose of these 2 positions would be to add additional personnel into what's called those swing shift platoons, 1 on each of them.
Okay. My last question on the police is, I think you had mentioned an evidence person. So we don't.
And so, again, in talking to Chief Harmon, and again looking at prioritization, that position actually falls in a prioritization through prioritization. It falls lower than the peace officer positions, and it's primarily due to what they already have currently staffed. We have 3 positions in that area. Ideally, they are in longer term, definitely looking for the 4th position to help with on-call as well as just regular workload. But again, when you're looking at how to spend resources, was not a higher priority than the other 2 positions, and not a higher priority than some of the other requests that we didn't fund either.
Okay, so did you say that one of those positions are on call right now? They're just on call positions?
No. We have 3 positions that are full-time.
Okay.
Full-time positions. Yeah.
Okay.
But
right.
They also serve just like some of your public works and utilities. We have people that also serve in an on-call capacity. So if something happens in the middle of the night, I'll give a utility example. If you have a water line break in the middle of the night, we have staff that rotate an on-call basis that are able to meet that need. And same thing with evidence. If we have something that happens where we have to call somebody outside of normal work hours, then they serve in an on-call capacity as well.
Okay.
Brenda, I got a question about that real quick. I mean, since we're talking about police, correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, there's nothing that states that we roll into next year, and the chief basically determines there's an uptake in criminal activity. God forbid that happens, but he's like, hey, there's been a huge surge, and we need an extra, 10 police officers to support, this increased activity. Is there nothing to say that if he comes to us with that request to increase the force by 10 personnel, that as a council, we could vote on that and approve that? Or does this budget pretty much prevent us from doing that?
Well, if we were, and I want to answer this very practically, and that is, if the chief comes to you in the middle of the year and says, gosh, we've got this uptick and I need to be able to staff this with another position or 2, we will look at what our expenditures are, what our revenue forecasting is, and really what you're having to do is fund positions that are less than a full year impact. And you may, practically speaking, if your revenues are sort of outpacing your forecasting, you may have the revenue in which to fund those positions. If he came to you and said, I need 10 positions, just a reminder, every position, like entry-level police officer position, your entry level is, let's see, not including vehicle, is about $105,000. That's salaries and benefits. So if he said, I need 10 positions, that's $1 million of revenue, of expenditure that you probably realistically are not going to have sitting there in order to fund ongoing positions like that. I can't imagine, given the size of our staff, which is about 100 police officers, that your police chief is going to come to you and say, I need a 10% increase in staffing in mid-year. It's usually not how that service level works. And so realistically, if he came to you, it would be for something that's much less than that, and the council can consider that off budget cycle based on what your revenues are doing and what your expenditures are doing. It's not preferred, but it does happen. And we have, like, you know, there are emergencies that happen that require us to really, you know, put the brakes on whatever we're doing and evaluate what immediate needs are in front of us. I hope that answered it.
Other questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good.
Brenda, you talked about since we're talking about the police, you talked about that we had a study that we did that talked about call volume that was done in 18 or 19. Is there any way before the next meeting that we could just see what the call volume is and has been for the last 2 or 3 months compared to what it was when that study was completed?
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd appreciate you doing that.
We'll put something together for you that allows you to take a look at.
Okay. And would there be a way, you would think that as many budgets that I've sat through, that I would know this, but would there be a way that we could, if we decided to add an officer or so, just hypothetically, that we could do it without adjusting the rate by maybe going to the fund balance instead of having to worry about a tax?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I would tell you that I can't recommend that you utilize your fund balance for an ongoing expense. We usually put our fund balance for one-time expenditures, and we are very consistent with that. We talk about that with our rating agencies and when people are evaluating how you use your dollars. And so I would not recommend using your fund balance for ongoing expenditures. Okay. So that said, if there's interest in, should we consider adding into that, adding personnel into the police department, then what I would say is, if you want us to look at that, then I need to be able to reduce expenditures in some other area. Okay.
Okay. So yeah. And then Brenda, thanks a lot. And that was a great question, Mike, and also the input from Dorian. Yeah, there is interest to consider to see if we can find a way to get a few more officers on the force.
Okay, heard that from a couple, so I'm not sure how how you guys want me to proceed with this. And I know this is I can't see you guys, so I don't know what my target I'm shooting at here.
This is Dorian. I would like to see just maybe if we have they need to, let's see what we'd have to do to get them one,
Okay, if you're looking at one, just so you guys know, I'm looking at about $150,000 in expenditure for one position. For two positions, double that. So it's a little over $300,000.
And you're saying the way we have to do that without impacting the rate would be to just take it off across the board?
Something else. Oh, good. I can see you guys now. Yeah. Okay. Yes, we have to reduce expenditures in some other areas, some other departments.
Okay. I would be satisfied with looking at one. And the only reason I ask, and I haven't talked to any of the council members about this, but it sounds like there's some issues. So I don't know other people's talking, but that's the things that's going on nationally, and particularly what's happening in Austin. The Cedar Park residents are reaching out, and that's a concern that they have. And so just the fact of spending it, I know one officer doesn't seem like a whole lot, but it shows the council is supporting the community and the safety of the community. So that's the reason why I want to at least look at it.
Well, I think we need to not forget that the proposed budget this evening, I know it was only mentioned sort of in passing, but this budget adds $500,000 for police for salaries and benefits. I know there's some cities that are slashing and burning their police based on current events, but this budget actually adds $500,000 to salaries and benefits for the police. So if the staff can ID the additional costs for the positions, then we can have a debate as to whether you guys want to raise taxes to do that, or whether you want to cut something else out of the budget, or fund balance, or, I mean, even though that's or just some combination of the above, we can have that data to look at.
Yeah, I definitely want to see the data. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's all I'm asking is for the data.
Yeah, me too.
Brenda, one other question is, when is the next police meet and confer? Is it this summer?
No, this summer it'll be the summer of FY21.
So it'll be the summer of 2021?
Yes, of 2020.
That's what I'm sorry. That's what I meant by next summer. I'm sorry. Yeah. So next year we're going to meet and confer with police.
Yes.
Okay.
So
when's the fire? Is the fire also next year, or is that 2 years?
The following year.
Okay.
So it'll be 2022.
Okay.
And so what it sounds like, so the direction that I'm getting right now is to take a look at options that would allow for the funding of a position. And then, so what I'll end up bringing back or presenting back to you are our options.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. All right.
Other questions?
Well, I'll make a motion if we're ready.
Wait, one other. I had a couple other questions. I didn't, even though this is tied to the budget issue, but our sales tax revenues were down. Is that right, Kent? Or
Right. So our sales tax from where we had originally projected, and again, we're collecting. Remember, our data runs about 6 weeks late. So we are just now getting information from June, and so we are now tracking budget. But I would say we continue to look at FY21 with a level of uncertainty. And so that's one of the reasons you don't see us growing our sales tax base going into 21.
Gotcha. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
Just a motion.
Okay, motion.
Yeah.
Hey, real quick before the motion. Hey, Kent. Just about those the taxes from sales. Hey, have we seen, and in the previous, I know 6 weeks behind, but have we seen an increase because people aren't going out and they're buying online? Have we seen an increase from the online tax, which is better for us because it means they're not going to Leander or that other place down south to spend their money?
Well, Councilman Kelly, that's a very good question. We do see our sales tax data every quarter, by business, by component of business, by category. And since June is the last month that we see sales tax collections, that is the end of a quarter. So we'll have that data and we'll be able to see exactly, what has increased, what has decreased in the sales tax revenue. But you're absolutely right. We have seen an increase in internet sales.
And so we'll actually, as Kent said, we'll be able to provide more detailed. I think we're planning to do your wonderful, fantastic quarterly report for your investments, as well as your quarterly financial report from the budget. And I think we plan to do that at our next council meeting. And by that point in time, we should have additional information related to more detailed, to your point of where we've seen ups and downs in our sales tax over the last quarter through the fiscal year today, through June.
And I should note that we do have 2 people actually signed up, even though this is not technically our public hearing. We do have 2 people signed up to address us on this. Melissa Kelly wishes to speak on the tax rate.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So I was just calling in. I know that it's kind of more complicated than just keeping the tax rate the same or raising it or lowering it. I just want to make sure that council kind of keeps in mind we're trying not to run our residents out of the city over the long term by increasing basically what the taxes end up being for them, regardless of the rate each year. And we want to keep the good citizens we have here. And then also in regards to the police issue, personally, I would love to see another 2 officers in the city, whether that means we take it from another part of the budget or decrease expenditures wherever. I don't mind how we do it, but I definitely think given the current climate that we should definitely consider doing 2, not just 1, because the purpose is to make sure that they have 2 shifts filled, from my understanding. And so I would just urge council to consider that going forward. Like we do want that extra kind of sense of security, given how things are going in the country and then just surrounding our city. So that's kind of all I have to say. Just I know it's obviously more complex than just keeping it the same, but if we could consider pulling from other areas or maybe temporarily cutting certain taxes. I know that typically when you give homeowners more money to spend, it will stimulate the economy and sales, at least from my understanding. So I just hope we're considering all the aspects and making sure we're keeping the citizens we have here. That's kind of all I got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Kelly? Okay. And Christine Mawat wishes to not speak, but wants me to read a statement about pay raises. She's writing tonight to oppose the budget increase on the agenda tonight. It's her understanding that this budget includes pay raises, which will then raise citizens' taxes. With the nation in despair right now, I think it's only fair to freeze all employee raises until the nation recovers from this national disaster. Thank you for reading this. I am recovering from jaw surgery and couldn't call in and speak. So that's everyone that signed up.
No. Yeah. So I'll make a motion. I move to set a proposed maximum tax rate of 0.446977 per $100 valuation to include an M&O rate of 0.248977 and an IM rate of 18000. In addition, I move to set public hearing dates of September 3rd, 2020 and September 10th, 2020 to adopt the city's budget and tax rate.
Don't they have to be second? Don't they have to be split? JP?
Oh, do we have to say them separately?
All they just said, you don't need separate motions. It's all been clearly stated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seconded.
So I have a motion by Chavez and a second by Kelly. Any discussion? Okay. Mr. Kelly?
Yes.
Ms. Duffy?
Aye.
Ms. Guevara?
Yes.
Mr. Kirkland?
Yes.
Robinson?
Yes.
Mr. Chavez?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That motion passes 7-0. Okay. Item F4, discussion and possible action regarding a citizen petition to recall Councilmember Tim Kelly and the City Secretary's certification of results pursuant to the Cedar Park Home Rule Charter.
Mayor, I'll go ahead and start off this item, if you don't mind. On behalf of Leanne Quinn, our City Secretary, with our Brady Bunch set up here, we only have so many talking head boxes. So I'll go ahead on her behalf. You received earlier this afternoon the city secretary's certificate with respect to the petition to recall Councilmember Tim Kelly, place 1, that was received in the city secretary's office on Monday, August 10th. The past few days, Leanne and others in our department have been working to certify those signatures, and the number that we were looking at for the charter was 10% of the qualified voters in the city of Cedar Park from both counties. The total number was 39,882. 10% of that was 3,988. The petition presented on Monday contained 1,406 signatures. Of those, the city secretary was able to certify 1,287, leaving it short of the requisite 10% threshold. So the result of the city secretary's review of the petition presented is that it's insufficient to reach the threshold for a recall action at this time.
Okay. And I've seen there's been a lot of information flying around about what our charter says about this type of thing, and what the state statutes say about this and how they work together or don't. It seems like, unless I'm misunderstanding something, you normally have 6 months to do a 6-month period to collect signatures. But what's driving this one to be very short is the fact that we have a state deadline for calling an election. And my understanding is that's Monday. Monday is the last day we can call an election. So, so I guess, I saw something from Leanne that was sent out to us right before the meeting. But how does it work if someone's trying to get more signatures? Are they able to turn those in or not? Is it too late?
Well, Mayor, you're correct. A recall election, it's a special election that under state law must be called on one of 2 uniform election dates. It's the Saturday in May or the first Tuesday in November. This year it's November 3rd, and that happens to be when our general election will be held. There's no stated deadline for submitting a recall petition, but if you bump up against one of the deadlines to call an election on those uniform election dates, you essentially have to wait until the next cycle. So you're correct in saying that the deadline for the November election is actually what's pushing the timeline if the citizens are interested in having this on the ballot for the November election. And that's correct. The deadline to call a special election for a recall or any other purpose for November 3rd, the upcoming uniform election date, is 78 days before that election, or Monday, August 7th by statute.
So do we know when the last time or whether Cedar Park has had a recall election before or petition before?
Not to my knowledge. I don't know, Brenda, do you recall any recall petition? Recall?
Yeah, not officially.
No.
Okay. Are there any questions of staff? We've got 9 people signed up to address the council on this item. Okay. Michelle Kane from Cedar Park wishes to speak on the recall petition. Michelle Kane.
Yes, hello.
Hi, you will have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 1-minute warning for the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Michelle Kane, and I'm a parent, teacher, and resident in Cedar Park. I'm here to speak concerning the petition to recall Councilor Tim Kelly. First of all, we are not a group of liberal loons, as has been assumed. We are a group of community members from across the political spectrum, varying political stances. But we have one goal in common. We want a nonpartisan city council, a council with leadership that does what is best and right for each one of us, regardless of the common ground we may or may not share. We want a mentally stable, kind human in our leadership positions. We want leadership that focuses on building community and is concerned with issues our local area is dealing with, instead of spotlighting national extremist propaganda. We want a leadership that owns up to its mistakes and tries to make our town better. We don't want a council that seeks to bring negative attention to us. You should not emulate someone in power who does these sorts of things. Those types of people should not be your political heroes. When you talk disparagingly against a group of people in your community, why should you expect people to be silent? Again, instead of apologizing or trying to clear the air, what do? head over to InfoWars to spread the misinformation to the rest of the tinfoil hat wearing brigade. I get it. Conspiracy theories and inflammatory news are fun to read. They're entertaining. But you know what they aren't? Reality. What would have been the best way to put out this fire that you so clearly started, Mr. Kelly, would be for you to have apologized. Aren't sure how to do that? I'll help you out. Maybe something like, you know, I realized the way I worded what I said about teacher unions wasn't super clear, that I was in no way talking about teachers or even unions here in Texas. I mean, Texas doesn't have unions, as teachers told me. Oops. Also, maybe I shouldn't have responded in the comments when I posted the article with phrases like, as I launch my campaign for school board LISD, which of course would be taken negatively. Guess I put my foot in my mouth there. Or maybe you could have said, you know, perhaps I shouldn't have responded using my official city council email to a teacher by telling her to get back to work. You're right, I was out of line. You can delete comments all you want, Tim, but we all saw them. And yes, people in positions of leadership should be held to a higher standard, whether they are on the dais or not. Mr. Kelly, you've continued to show your true...
But you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. You've continued to show your true colors. Assuming we're with Flanagan, laughable. Assuming your enemies recruited us, ridiculous. Trying to say this is a witch hunt against you by the mayor and other members of the council, you know that that's outlandish. This is a grassroots effort to gather signatures in a pandemic when we can't even go door to door. So to double down and say, and I quote, it's surprising teachers don't know how to read an article and extract out of it. So that's the status of our teachers these days. You did this to yourself. It is possible the petition won't get the required number of signatures. Yes, we know that. We don't have 30 days or 6 months like a petition typically does. But imagine if we did. We got over 1,300 signatures in 8 days. We are making history here in Cedar Park. We deserve better. Which side of history do you want to be on? The leadership in this city needs to be held to a higher standard. And when the core values, as stated in the charter, are not followed, there needs to be a protocol in place to deal with that. I stand by my previous statement from the meeting where you were censured. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. King. Melanie Rice, Cedar Park.
I was going to say, we have no room for trolls, but I got beat.
Hang on, what? Oh. Melanie Rice from Cedar Park wishes to speak on the topic of Tim Kelly needs to resign. Is Ms. Rice? Are you
yes. Yes. Can you hear
me? You have 3 minutes to talk, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning.
Thank you. So I'm part of a group that collected over 1,400 ink signatures of registered voters in Cedar Park in a matter of 8 days during a pandemic. This collection was completed passive, requiring people to seek us out in order to sign. We may not collect all the required signatures in the allotted time, which is much shorter than typically allowed. And that you and those like you, Tim Kelly, are not wanted by the citizens of Cedar Park. The only course of action is for you to resign. I know that you're not from here, but we are proud people. We were raised by the 10 ethical principles of Leander ISD. We expect honesty, truth, telling the truth, integrity, doing the right thing, promise, loyalty, concern for others, civic duty, so making the world a better place, respect for others, being polite and kind to everyone and everything, fairness, treating everybody equally, and the pursuit of excellence, doing the best you can and always looking for ways to improve. Accountability, admitting what you do wrong and taking pride in what you do right. This is a completely bipartisan issue for me. Know that they are allowed to have different views than their peers, but they also know that they still need to treat them with respect. I respect that you served in the military and that you probably feel a certain loyalty to your base, but when you demean people for their beliefs, that is not okay. And when you retaliate against those who believe differently than you, that is not okay. The only honorable course of action is to issue a public apology to those who you have demeaned over the past 1.5 years and to resign. This last message I have for the council: open hearts and open minds get fed.
Thank you. Katie Schaefer wishes to speak about the Tim Kelly recall.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You have 3 minutes, okay. And I'll give you a warning at the 1 minute.
Thank you for letting me talk. I had some technical difficulties earlier.
I want to take the time to remind people why we find ourselves addressing a recall petition tonight. We are here due to controversy after controversy initiated by Tim Kelly. You see hundreds upon hundreds of posts on his campaign page, of which only an extremely small amount pertain to our city, and most of those are exclusively negative and divisive. He continually injects himself into controversial events in other cities and surrounds himself with conspiracy theory groups and radical extremists. He has repeatedly jeopardized the health and safety of our community. This has absolutely nothing to do with partisanship, but rather upholding basic decency, respect, and honor for our city, which I can't say I have ever seen him do. Calling women against him derogatory names, body shaming them, calling them Antifa and witches, when truly they are just daughters, wives, and moms who take a vested interest in our city and their local government. Attacking city council members on the dais, bringing in out-of-towners to continue to embarrass our city, one of whom accosted Miss Duffy as she had to be walked to her car by a police officer, and then Tim Kelly goes out for a celebratory dinner with them thereafter. Then the leech statements and the continuing of bashing of teachers as recently as this week, putting our police officers at risk with another councilman while gathering with no social distancing or wearing a mask while we have a mandatory ordinance. How is that for leading by example? Then Tim Kelly shares the same councilman's conspiracy videos where he bashes our city and other councilors and then makes outrageous statements that truly don't even make sense. And then to go and make slanderous statements in regards to us just today. We are not radical activists. We are citizens who have had enough of the Kelly show. The petition is about the consistent habitual pattern of inappropriate...
Ms. Schaefer, I'm sorry, but you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
Thank you. Inappropriate statements and actions by Tim Kelly since the election 15 months ago. His continued targeting of local citizens, community members, and several of the other council members is outrageous, detrimental to Cedar Park, and is disqualifying. Despite his pre-election campaign messaging, we're all in this together, since election, Tim Kelly has done nothing but divide the community. His post-election position has been that he only represents the 2,910 people that voted for him. That is unacceptable bait and switch for the other 77,000 of us. This is why the petition effort was undertaken, and he has continued this aggressive behavior relentlessly over the past 2 weeks. This is exactly why we are here. We have finally had enough of the Kelly show. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Deanna Perkins, Cedar Park, wishes to speak on the petition. Ms. Perkins, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes. You have 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning.
Thank you. Good evening to you all, Mr. Mayor and City Council members. My name is Deanna Perkins, and I am an elementary school teacher and parent in Leander ISD. I'm here tonight first to give Mr. Kelly a huge thank you. Mr. Kelly, thank you for posting all of our addresses on what you claim to be your personal Facebook blog 3 times to let people know where you find petitions to sign. You might have thought that would have stopped us because of the threats that your supporters have posted, but you're wrong. That made us stronger. I want you to know that this petition has nothing to do with our mayor and the radicals. I want you to give credit where credit is due, the teachers. Teachers are tired of being quiet. Teachers can comprehend a post when they see it. Your posts don't always go along with what the article is about, and your teacher one proves that. Your quote, fire them and hire new teachers, has nothing to do with union leaders and everything to do with your thoughts on teachers wanting to go back in a safe manner. Teachers are not leeches. We put our whole heart into what we do. We teach all students to embrace each other's differences because it is what makes us all unique. You, Mr. Kelly, do the opposite. You have shown the citizens of Cedar Park to hate. You have shown the citizens of Cedar Park that if you are LGBTQ and reading to kids, that you have an alternate agenda to groom them. And if you allow your children to listen and see this, it's child abuse. How dare you, Mr. Kelly? How dare you insult humans, many of them citizens in our own town? That is not what a leader does. You are a city council member. If I were to treat parents and students this way as a teacher, I would get fired, and rightly so. Why do you get to get away with such hurtful and ugly actions and words? Our group of teachers, parents, and citizens with diverse political views, not so-called liberal loons as you like to call us, are diligently trying to get signatures in order to get someone to replace you that has more empathy and true concerns for our city and citizens. You have an agenda to spread your hate, and to that I am
Ms.
saying,
Perkins, I'm sorry, but you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
not in my town, not where my kids and students live. I will not be quiet. I will use my teacher voice. And if by any bizarre reason we don't get the signatures needed in time because we aren't able to go door to door in respect of others' health, you need to know that we will continue to use our voice for future elections. We need bullying and hate to step down from our city's leadership positions. I will continue to use my teacher voice. Thank you.
Just wanted to make two statements of fact. First one is, I know that Councilman Kelly did not dox anybody. I know I saw that post you're referring to, and I believe, Councilman Kelly, you shared somebody else's post onto your page, so it's not like you were trying to target anybody. The other matter of fact, or more factual statement, is that some have been going door to door petitioning, because I've been getting calls from citizens about that, particularly one, and hopefully we can get the next video that they have, actually slandering Councilman Kelly at the door and saying he embezzled money and some other state trying to get signatures. So that's what's, what I've been called about from citizens. And if we can get that video, I promise you, I will post it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Merrick from Cedar Park wishes to speak on core values of the city.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me, or am I in mute?
Yes, sir. You've got 3 minutes, and I'll give you a 1 minute warning.
Beautiful. And thank you, Mr. Chavez, for pointing out that Mr. Kelly's post stated, places to sign my recall petition with a direct link to the website, https://recalltimkelly.wixsite.com/main. So Mr. Kelly did indeed share with everybody places to sign a recall petition. He even indicated he should go sign one in his comments. He is interested to know that this will be public record, so that is good. And he has shared conversations with his supporters about the names and signatures. Comments like, oh, must be nice knowing you can walk into strangers' homes with masks on. Do you get names and addresses of those who signed the petition too? Mr. Kelly, it's not of interest anyway. No, it's not of interest. Now, I'm going to do what I started out doing, and I'm going to do it one more time, and I'm going to keep doing it as long as Mr. Kelly is in here and anybody who is violating the core ethics of Cedar Park. Okay? Core values. Yet again, Mr. Kelly, community. We strive to improve, promote, and help the community where we work and live. We build bridges that encourage opportunities to connect our residents, businesses, and visitors. We heard things 2 weeks ago that stated that we were hurting businesses with those bridges you weren't building anymore. Service. Our commitment to excellent service is at the core of what we do. We exhibit pride, enthusiasm, and dedication in our work and strive to improve the community and better people's lives. Improve the community is all of Cedar Park, not just those who follow you, Mr. Kelly. Better people's lives is everybody's lives, not just yours. Leadership. We provide positive influence for citizens.
Mr. Merrick, you have 1 minute remaining. Thank you.
Positive influence for citizens. We overcome obstacles. This is very much an obstacle. We will overcome it. And we move forward in a direction that follows our community vision. We have a healthy desire to improve Cedar Park and support the use of original and creative methods to better the city. We believe that discovering new ideas and embracing changes provides opportunities for success. Change provides opportunity for success. Professionalism. We are efficient and responsive, organizing, providing the highest level of knowledge and expertise. integrity. We adhere to the highest ethical standards, something you preached, Mr. Kelly, 15 months ago in the community impact about your military background and your high ethical standards. We are honorable, fair, and sincere and strive to uphold our organizational values and with our decisions and in our actions. And your actions have been what have been at the core of everything. Finally, with that, Mr. Kelly.
Merrick, please try to wrap it up. Thank you.
Yep, I'll skip the fiscal responsibility because the action is the key, and your actions have consequences, and you're seeing them today. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. Have a
Thank you. Robert Rea wishes to speak on the removal petition. Okay, I've been told that Mr. Rea is no longer there. Let's see. Okay. Chad Sowards, Cedar Park, does not wish to speak, but has comments on the intimidation tactics by Kelly. It's telling that Kelly republished the addresses that were hosting recall petitions on his Facebook page. Was he promoting the recall, or is this just another intimidation tactic? He seems obsessed with obtaining information on those who speak out against him. This seems to go against the city's strategic goals of strong community connections and safety as top of mind. Specific item, enhanced citizen safety level. Christine Mawat does not wish to speak. She wants to say, stop this madness. I want to make sure this goes down on the record. The 1,406 signatures does not speak for the majority of Cedar Park citizens. We have 39,882 voters registered in our city. These signatures represent less than 4% of us. The people upset regarding a public post have spoken, and the continuous lashing of Mr. Kelly needs to stop. It's obvious Mr. Kirkland, Mr. Van Arsdale, and Ms. Duffy hate Mr. Kelly and will try to do anything to get him removed, but he was elected by... And that's cut off. 3 words, it looks like are cut off. And then...
Point of fact.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, what?
Point of fact.
Yes.
So I'd like to think that I got them about 200 votes by my post of their addresses. It was copied off of their website. It was just the addresses where you could go to sign. Unfortunately, I was unable to go and sign one myself, which I was completely intending to do. Also, when citizens make a comment and they say whether they're from Cedar Park or the address, like it was for that hoax that was put on a couple council meetings ago, I didn't write them down, and you can go to the city secretary and also realize that I have not requested those names or addresses of anyone who spoke. I'm about promoting the rights and individual rights of everyone and following the law. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Ms. Kelly Jen, Cedar Park, petition for recall, does not wish to speak. Citizens need to be made aware that the people behind this petition are not far left liberal loons. As we have been described, most of us are regular citizens with no prior political involvement, and many are historically conservative. He is not fit to represent this city in any official capacity. He harasses, intimidates, spreads hate, and infringes on the safety of citizens with radical thoughts and behaviors, and is simply not a kind human being. It's not just about calling teachers leeches, and then it cuts off. I can't tell what else it says. And that's everyone that's signed up to speak on item F4.
So is there a question to be called?
I'm sorry, what?
Is there a question to be called on this, or what?
I don't. When you say question to be called, I don't know what you mean.
Yeah. So there's no recall petition. So can we just end this and move on?
Yeah. Actually, I have a comment I want to make. I would like to let the other council members, if they want to.
Oh, of course.
Have comments.
Of course. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But all I would say is, regardless of what the subject matter of the recall petition is, I'm not aware of there being a recall petition before. And I think anytime you have, 1,400 people engaged in government in a 7-day period, even if they're trying to recall me, I think
that's coming.
Getting people involved is a good thing. And I know there's a lot of people that have said that they haven't been involved, and I think it's positive people be involved. So, no, you didn't have 180 days, but 7 days, that's 100-degree heat during COVID. I think being involved in your government's a good thing. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor. I think that back when we were doing the Bell Boulevard open houses, we would tout how we had 700 people at the rec center coming out and how great it was that all the people were participating in the city and getting involved with the Bell Boulevard project, which we talked about earlier tonight. And this number basically doubled it, even though about 200 got pulled out because they were ineligible. Just want to remind everybody, only the incorporated areas of Cedar Park are part of what we as a council oversee in the city. So, unincorporated areas of Cedar Park are not in Cedar Park city limits as far as is concerned with this council.
Okay. Any other comments or?
I just want to thank the citizens that got out and felt like they needed to exercise their right and sign the petition or create the petitions. And, being that it's teachers leading up to about a week before they were back in the classroom today, or the virtual classroom, if you will, I thank you. Your passion is duly noted. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Yeah, as I've stated recently in the media and stuff, with the track record of what's been going on against Councilman Kelly, this, and not just to me, but to many citizens, this obviously looks like a move from Councilman Mel Kirkland and the mayor as a purely political move. Again, we briefly started touching on the mayor's letter that went out at the last election with the 3 conservative candidates, where you slandered some of them. When I know the mayor had asked if I'd read the comment about him stating that Councilman Kelly was disparaging women or something like that, and you asked me if I thought that was true, and I said no. When I brought up the fact of you slandering Councilman Kelly and saying that he's running gambling rings in the city, I started to ask, well, why didn't you report him to the police? Why? Because, if he's running these gambling rings in our city, an investigation like that on him would probably get him out of office or out of running pretty quick. But you avoided the question because you lied. You lied about it because you were just slandering him. You were trying to sway the vote away from all the conservative candidates. You said Councilman Robinson had no service to community or whatever, even though he's a retired veteran. You slandered.
Mr. Chavez, we're not posted to discuss those. You're violating the open meeting. So what I would say is, first of all, that's not what the letter said. You should go read it.
Let me finish talking.
Please don't violate the open meeting.
I'm done talking, Mayor.
Please refrain your comments.
The other time you guys tried to do this was Mel Kirkland back on April 23rd. He tried to get a special called meeting on us to, I guess, get us recalled or censured, and that happened on April 23rd. And if you go watch the video, it's at the
I'm sorry to interrupt, but
that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Deviated from the scope.
Anyone else? Okay. Item 5, discussion regarding the COVID-19 declaration of local state of disaster for the city of Cedar Park. Is John Cummings on the?
Hello, Mayor. John Cummins, Emergency Management. You guys hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Basically, where we are right now, looking back at the numbers and stuff that came out today, we're actually doing okay in hospitals. Ventilators and ICU beds available are actually kind of down. Right now, we're about 76% beds in use, about 75% of the ventilators in use, and about 24% of the vents are in use, 75% of the ICU beds are in use, and about 76% of overall beds. Currently, we're seeing a 7-day average positive of about 8%. The goal is to be at about 5%, so we're still a little high there. We've had some spikes in our numbers and some adjustments in our numbers, and a lot of that's been due to a backlog at the state. So they've been a little inconsistent over the last few days, but they seem to be leveling out. As far as we know here in Cedar Park, we've maintained right around 100 active cases for the last few weeks. Even though our number goes up, our recoveries are going up also. So about 100 cases is what we're seeing reported active for each day.
Thank you. And I know that a lot of people right now, the school reopening is sort of been the big concern of parents and residents and teachers and LISD. I know Brenda and I had a meeting this week with our superintendent and the board chair and another board member about that issue, and it was a long meeting. And I know we're having weekly meetings with the health district and other officials. And one thing they are saying is that when you look back at June the 29th, which was the week that the Williamson County mayors and the governor put in mask orders, the numbers since that time have dramatically improved on case counts increases. And the number of recoveries has dramatically improved. And the health district every week is talking about that. For example, June 29th, the state had a 55% recovery rate, and it was declining at its low point. They're now at 72% recovered. The city of Cedar Park that week was at 33% recovery on June the 29th. We're now at 87% recovery. So all of you residents out there that are wearing your masks when you're in close contact with people, it's making a huge difference. And, you know, there's a lot of studies coming out now that show that if we had done this back in March and April, we wouldn't have had to shut down. Like some countries have not shut down because they were doing this from the get-go. And who knows how many jobs and salaries we would have saved by doing that. So anyway, that's where things stand. I think as school reopens, there are going to be some hiccups. It's a big operation to try to fire back up the school system under some of the protocols they're doing. I know some of you guys as kids and you personally are sort of wrapped up in that. Are there any questions or comments? We do have 2 people signed up to talk.
Yeah, just that your numbers that you quoted were wonderful and fine, but people don't recover because other people are wearing masks. So another great spin there, Mr. Mayor.
No, but people don't get it when you wear masks.
Read your numbers. You just quoted 55% were recovering before the mask, and now it's 75%. So I guess
it's not what I said.
I guess if you're sick,
the recovery rate.
Are you going to interrupt me while I talk?
Do you know what a recovery rate is?
So 55% were recovering before the mask, and now 75%. It doesn't matter if you're wearing.
What I said was the data is from the state. The data is from the state, and I'm going to say it to you. I can't help you understand it, but 55% on June 29th of the state's cases had recovered. Okay?
All because of wearing a mask, right? Because everybody's wearing a mask? That's what you're insinuating.
August the 12th, it's up to 72% recovery.
We have
rate.
a higher recovery rate of people who are already sick and infected, and they're recovering because we're wearing masks?
No, it's just data. I can't help you understand it. Okay.
And nor can I help you, the man who has a degree, and I have 100 credits in college.
Yeah, I got no comment on that. We've got 2 people signed up. Do you want to hear from them? Okay.
What
Travis
do you
Bell,
want me to
Cedar
do?
Park.
How do you want me to vote, Mr. Mayor? What do you want me to do? Tell me
We're
what.
not posted for action, so there will be no voting. I thought you knew that. Okay. Travis Fell wants to speak on the next steps with the coronavirus. Mr. Fell?
Hello, can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'm going to do a screen share real quick, then I'll get going. Oh, I don't think
You
I
have 3
share.
minutes, and then I'll give you a 1 minute warning.
Roger that. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I am not anti-mask. None of us is entitled to be inconvenienced during extraordinary times when matters of public health are at stake. I am anti-fear. Mask mandates are tangible symbols of the regime of fear and restriction that governs our lives today. We need to break this spell of fear with truth and real-world observation. One such observation is the state of Hawaii. The state has had a mask mandate since April 20th. However, according to the Hawaii Department of Health, the state's 7-day case average rose from 19 on July 15th to 128 on August 5th, which is a 670% increase. The Philippines has had a mask mandate since April 2nd. On July 17th, the New York Times published a survey that showed Philippines leads the world in mask usage at 92% compliance. However, according to Worldometer, the Philippines 7-day case average rose from 1,201 on July 15th to 4,212 on August 7th, which is a 350% increase. Western media has promoted Hong Kong as a model mask mandator since March. However, according to Worldometer, Hong Kong's 7-day case average rose from 4 on June 30th to 129 on July 30th, a 32x increase. So did these mask mandates work? So these examples illustrate the opportunity for Cedar Park to rethink its coronavirus approach based on new questions and data, such as, number one, are the local hospitals really being overrun? I think we need to know what is today's county hospital occupancy rate versus a benchmark. Dr. James Allen, who's a professor of internal med at Ohio State University, published an analysis suggesting the hospital occupancy was best between 75 and 85%. And according to today's Wilco coronavirus tracker, our hospitals are at 78% capacity. So maybe we're doing well on that front. Number two, what is the impact of net new coronavirus patients on hospital occupancy?
Mr. Fell, sorry, you have 1 minute left. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. In other words, how many coronavirus visits are for the virus versus with the virus? And here I think seeing trends in admitting diagnosis and average length of stay would help us see the impact of net new visits. Third, what is the source of net new coronavirus visits? Seeing summaries by age cohort, admission source, county of residence, and comorbidities for net new patients would help paint the picture of populations most at risk for showing up in the hospital. So using this focused, data-driven approach will enable public health officials to protect the most vulnerable populations, and allow the rest of us to get back to work, get back to school, and back to life. I'll go back my time.
Thank you. Mr. Mays.
A point of potential fact on that. Watch out, sir. You might get doxxed.
Alan Mays from Cedar Park wishes to speak on musician unemployment. And he apparently is not there. I should note that Mr. Cummins, I see that, and city manager, all our emergency management people around us, the county, we see the data every day on the ICU usage and the hospital usage. And I can tell you that the week of June 29th, it was hovering in the 98 to 100% range of usage. That's where it was then. In fact, I do know of one Cedar Park resident whose husband had a stroke and could not be admitted to the hospital because there were no ICU rooms available. And had to wait, I think, for 5 hours to get a room. Ms. Duffy's in the medical profession. I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that or not, but the states, there are states in the United States who have masks mandates in parts of their state, but not in others. Maybe I read Forbes article yesterday about South Carolina. Forbes magazine, just go read that data. But again, it's not the mandate that makes the numbers get better. It's the people actually doing things like distancing, not hugging on people that aren't from your house, not going in the crowds of hundreds of people, not hanging out indoors with a bunch of people, real close contact. That's how it spreads. It's not real complicated. And the less you do things that spread it, the less cases you have.
Mr. Mayor, I've been everywhere since this whole thing started, and I haven't gotten sick, and it's all about basically washing your hands, keeping your hands away from your face. If you put your hands on your face, wash often. Yeah, socially distance. But you know what? I'm opposed to any mask mandates, and you should rescind that. In fact, I request that we have an agenda item that removes the disaster declaration that we so stupidly voted on for continuation. This is ridiculous.
You actually made the motion.
Cities all over the world with 1 million population in it, and 4 people come up positive for COVID, and they lock everybody down. You know what? This has gone too far. People just have to use their brain, wash themselves, and you don't need this authority because obviously you've abused it.
If you look at the minutes of the meeting on March 22nd, you're the one that made the motion and voted for it.
No, Mr. Mayor, I made my initial motion was on a 7-day rotating. We could have a 5-minute session, but you just snowballed it again. So you can use all you want. I know because I went back and I looked at it.
Yeah, go back and read the minutes because that's what they say.
Remove your disaster declaration. Thank you. So yeah, of course you won't do it because it doesn't benefit your tyranny.
Just go back and read the minutes as to what you moved for and voted for, Tim.
I read the minutes and I read the discussion led up to it, and you just did the snow job.
Any other discussion?
Yeah, I have one item also that I'd like to request when you get done with your discussion.
Okay, we're going to go back into executive session. We're going to go into executive. It's 10:06. We're going to go into executive session at 10:15.
In accordance with Chapter 551 of the Government Code, the Council will now convene in a closed executive session pursuant to the following provisions of the Open Meetings Act, Section 551.087 regarding economic development negotiations. Thank you.
Reconvene the council in open session. I guess item H1, consider action, if any, on items discussed in executive session. AP? Okay. H2, Mayor and Council closing comments. Mr. Guevara?
He's probably already in bed, but I want to thank Ken and all the staff for working so hard to get all the budget together. And if anybody's still listening, good night.
Okay, Ms. Duffy? Is Ann on? Nope. Oh, she is. Ann, are you there?
I don't see your bubble or your square.
I'm not saying she's there. Mr. Kelly.
Oh, yeah, she is.
Yeah, I request a future agenda item and discussion about either an apology or a censure of Ann Duffy for disparaging remarks to Lynn Marks and also to Melissa Kelly.
Okay, Ms. Duffy. Any closing comments? Can you hear me? No? Okay. Mr. Kirkland?
Just want to thank everybody for coming to tonight's meeting, for all the speakers, for all the work staff's done so far on the budget. And I guess I'll see everybody again in 2 weeks. Have a nice evening.
Okay. Mr. Robinson?
Yeah, just to reiterate, thank you to the staff for all of your hard work that went into the budget. You guys have done an amazing job. Anyone that's out there that's watching, thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your evening.
Mr. Chavez?
Yeah, I wanted to actually commend our police department and its leadership for putting our officers through a training I attended a couple weeks ago. It was a 4-hour in-service training with the Cedar Park Police Department, and the training was on response to resistance. It was a really good training. I mean, they went through all the video case files of, all the incidents across the nation, where people, died or whatever. But they went through, they kind of picked them all apart. And then at the end, they had a really good hands-on training where they had a very fit police officer go out, and I think he was running for like 8 minutes or something. He came into the room all sweaty and hot and, out of breath. And they had 3 police officers grab him. They put him on the ground and kind of simulated an arrest. And then they placed different points of pressure as they're required to once they have him on the floor. And at each point, they would ask him, how's your breathing? Can you breathe? And so it was really interesting to see, this really fit police officer, like when they put one knee on the back, he was having already a little bit of trouble. Then they went to his mid back and back to his legs. And at every point, it got worse. I think the police officer in our class had said that when he got the pressure on his back, that's when he was really having to kind of time his breathing. And this is a fit police officer that's running, the guy looked fit. So it really gave the police officer a really good idea of, how to treat, a suspect or some criminal that they might be going after. It's just somebody, it gave them a really good idea of how breathing could be restricted, depending on how you place them down or sit them or lie them down. So it was a very, very good training. I think I'd heard or found out that a lot of the police academies out there don't teach this. They don't teach this type of training. So they're now teaching it to everybody in our police department. Again, great training. I just wanted to, give kudos to the police department and the leadership. I think they ran an excellent class, and I look forward to seeing more classes of development like this for our PD. In fact, I thought it was excellent. Just great guys. Great job, guys. Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. And Ms. Duffy, I don't know if can you hear me? Yeah. Did you want to make any closing comments or no?
Oh, just thank you, and thank you to just all the senior staff for your extra time during budget, answering our questions, indulging us, and thanks for everyone's participation.
Yes, this is the weirdest so far budget way we've done it since I've been here. Did it virtual and not being around all the department heads like we normally are. So I miss seeing all the department heads. I know they were watching at some point. So, but it's been fantastic. Kent's done a great job, and thank you for that. And I agree with Dorian. The police training was awesome and fascinating, actually, to sort of learn some of the things in there and hear the police officers candidly talk back and forth about what they learned, what they have questions about what they were saying. The instructions by Conrad Maurer were awesome, and I just want to thank Chief Harmon for extending that invitation to us. And then really after sitting on the meeting with the superintendent of LISD this week, I know a lot of our parents, teachers, school folks, extracurricular activities. It's just a lot of stress out there about firing back up the school year, and I just want everyone to know that we really appreciate y'all, and we're here to support you. And we extended that support from the city to the school district and help them any way we can get the school year back up and going. So thank y'all.